Ladies and gentlemen, calling the meeting to order. The May 16th City Council regular meeting. Would you please all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. Trish, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Walk.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
Councilmember DeFreeze.
Here.
Vice Mayor West.
Yes.
Mayor Martirana.
Here.
All are present. We have one.
Okay. Thank you. So we have now public comment, and this would be on items not on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do you have any public comment? Any cards? Anyone from the public? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, consent items. I'd actually like to give anybody from the Valley Vista Landscape and Lighting Maintenance Assessment District that would have any questions. That would be the, what's it called?
Creek Bridge.
Creek Bridge Housing Development.
They are having a public hearing at the next meeting.
At their next meeting?
No, at this meeting, and that's what one of the resolutions calls for, setting a public hearing for the
Good,
next meeting.
okay. I just wanted to make sure if there was anybody, because it's on the consent agenda, we typically blow through these pretty quickly. Okay, so Tony, you've had move to approve.
Second.
We have 2 resolutions.
Yes, okay, the resolution number starts with 12. It's 12 and 13. Okay, Councilmember Block.
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman.
Yes.
Councilmember DeFreeze.
Yes.
Vice Mayor West.
Yes.
Mayor Martirana.
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Thank you. So, pardon me, what number 12 and 13?
Yeah.
The 2 resolutions in that item. Okay, so that takes us to number 4, presentations, informational items, and reports, beginning with a Youth Commission annual presentation to the City Council. We have...
Hello. So I am Angela Oliveira. I'm the Youth Commission Adult Advisor. I have to apologize. I was not intending to give this presentation. I was just here for moral support, but I guess I'll do it for them. I also haven't looked over the PowerPoint, so this should be interesting. So we have on the second page a listing of the current commissioners, the newest commissioners, which were just approved this year, are Destiny, Karina, Ashley, and Celeste. Celeste is a current senior, so she will be graduating this year and no longer part of the Youth Commission. The prioritized action plan that the Youth Commission has come up with for this year, we've already completed 2 of the items on this action plan. The environmental awareness event. I think you all have the PowerPoint, right? So the environmental awareness event happened on April 29th at the Library Park. It was very successful. It was the second year doing this event, and our attendance tripled, which was impressive. The Youth Commission would like to hold a soccer workshop in August of this year, and some sort of projected movies, maybe at the community center. They're throwing some ideas around sometime this winter. And then we have held a Hollister mixer with the Hollister Youth Commission, and they intend to continue doing that each year. The Hollister Youth Commission, I believe, was kind of modeled after the San Juan Bautista Youth Commission. There's only a few of them, and they're kind of trying to get started and get their feet off the ground, but not quite there yet. So we brainstormed a lot of ideas. They're open to working with the San Juan Bautista Youth Commission also. So that's also on the next page, the networking potluck mixer. The Youth Commission has been working with the Mission Village Voice and has submitted, I believe, one article to date, but would like to make this kind of a monthly thing, youth writing articles about things that they care about in the community and submitting it to the Mission Village Voice. So far it's been youth commissioners who are submitting articles, but they'd like to expand it to other members of the community, other youth members of the community, and then have a backup article written by one of their subcommittee members. On the next page is the spending plan, the 2017 budget that we have kind of worked out together. We have spent to date $34.64, and future expenditures, they'd like to purchase some T-shirts for current members who do not have T-shirts, so that they're easily identified in events that we hold, and for future members. A little bit information about the Environmental Awareness Day. It highlighted drought. We had a member from the water agency, I can't remember the name, I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head, speaking about drought issues and water conservation. They had an upcycling bird feeder craft activity. There was motivational posters, what they could do to help the environment, and some games. It was a wide variety of youngsters there, aging from under a year old all the way up to adults. And we offered a door prize of aquarium tickets that were donated by the aquarium. Some photos from the event are included in the PowerPoint, and then a list of other ideas and activities that they've been discussing. So, do you have questions for me, or?
When do they have regularly scheduled meetings?
It's the 4th Tuesday of the month. Next Tuesday is the upcoming meeting at 6:30.
In this room?
Usually at the community center. Anything else?
I'd actually like to ask a question.
Sure.
As this is an advisory body to the city council,
Right.
I know in strategic planning committee we've been discussing youth commission a lot, and I think, at least personally, I'm not speaking for the group or anything, but I think it would help if we could increase the lines of communication between this committee and the council, because there's not one right now, and that's sort of the main point of the organization. So,
Right.
if you could work together maybe a little bit on that, starting with strategic planning committee, and then working up from there, I think that'd be a good plan of action.
Absolutely. The chair just walked in. So maybe she could address some questions. This is Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
I already did. Did you have questions for Rachel or myself?
Welcome.
Thank you.
I don't think so. Anyone else?
No.
Any other questions? No, I think we're.
Okay.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay. For B, Treasurer's Report. Mr. Geiger, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Earlier I sent an email to Trish. I work in the Salinas Union High School District, and we have a ward assembly tonight, so I thought I had to be there, and they let me come in a little bit later, so I'll just come up and give my report. Anyway, this is the 10th month of the fiscal cycle, ending April 30th. Some of the financial highlights: we show an increase in the general fund balance, which is roughly about $200,000 more than compared to last year. This is primarily the difference is primarily the result of impact and planning income that has occurred in the last few months. Also, we had some higher capital expenditures than last year at this time, so that's real positive. The enterprise fund is still operating at a net loss, but but a small net loss compared to what it was a year ago. So we're about $200,000 improved over last year's net loss. Yes.
Is that net loss, does that include making payments for past, what do you call them, money swaps that were done when it was really losing money quite badly and borrowed from the general fund? This was,
Repayment to the general fund.
does that include repayments to the general fund?
That is, we deferred that intergovernmental payment to the very last month
So the
of
short
this
answer
fiscal year.
is, short answer is no.
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 Right, yeah.
The short answer.
And so that will reflect in the June warrant list. Right.
Okay.
And-
Thank you.
Is
I'm
that,
sorry.
okay. Also, the overall cash flow of the city is positive. Once again, general revenues a little higher than budgeted, which is good. Under budget versus actuals, page 1 of your report. Page 2, just expenditures. Once again, expenditures were a little bit lower than budgeted by about $130,000. And that's a good process if when your expenditures are below your income. Enterprise fund revenues was higher than budgeted by a couple $40,000. It's pretty much break even, which is good. And the expenses were a little bit lower, a little over $100,000. Okay. Just a couple comments. I was looking at, and you have this whole packet of spreadsheets. The council received them. A couple things that really kind of jumped out, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention is on page, let's see, is that page 1? If you look at the income of the city, Roger, maybe you can help me out here. Look at this thing called triple flip in sales, and we're budgeted to get $20,000, but we haven't received anything. I was wondering, is that coming in at another time?
The triple flip got eliminated by the governor's budget, and it was supplemented by an augmentation of the gas tax.
Okay.
And so there was that triple flip came about, because of they borrowed money out of the gas tax and had to pay it back, and it was a convoluted relationship. And it lasted for 3.5 years. The Governor Brown eliminated this year, but he augmented the gas tax.
And is that line item going to be taken out of the budget, you think?
Yeah.
Next year for sure?
Triple flip.
Okay, because I wasn't quite sure what the triple flip, I knew it had to do something with the state. If you look down at other revenues on the same page, couple comments here. Our sales tax looks like they're off about $16,000. But if you look at the transient lodging tax, that is significantly increased by about $30,000. So that's really positive, showing that we have more visitors coming to town, they're paying tax, and we're receiving that tax. So that was worth noting today. I also kind of noted that the franchise fees, that we seem to have a dip in the franchise cable. Was there a change in that, Roger, or something?
No, they generally don't come in until the last quarter here.
So probably the next month we'll see it?
Yes.
Okay. I also noticed that the total business and miscellaneous licenses seem to be down. Looks like about 25%. Is that because you're expecting more businesses to come in on board this summer?
We've lost quite a few little entrepreneurs over this last year, and we're starting to see a resurgence of businesses coming back.
Okay. Okay. Just a couple more things I noticed here. Our total planning and building engineering permits, this is on, I guess it's page 2. You see a significant increase there, and I'm assuming this is all from the planning of the new developments coming in, that they've been paying their fees of, because we were budgeted like $24,000 and we got $250,000. So that's a significant increase to the city. And then in the warrants, if you have the warrant pages, I thought I put it to the council. Did you have any particular ones that kind of jumped out, Mr. Bach?
Claudia Lona, $1,000.
That's a refund.
JM Electric, 4,400.
Well, there's more than that.
It was almost 11,000.
Jam. There's 3 items for jam.
Oh, yeah, no, that was some pump work and monitoring at the wastewater treatment plant. The sulfide gas, we eventually got through all of the electrical connections and supplied the control circuit, and we had to get another control unit in there.
Your mics.
Miller Star Regalia.
And that's the flags that we purchased? Yes. Yeah. When we were going to replace a few flags, it was cheaper for us to order, and I think we ordered 6 and 6. So that should last us for a couple of years.
Is this our first payment on the level 1 security coming in this month?
No, there's 2 months into that, you know.
Oh, is that okay?
Right, yeah, right, yeah. Yeah.
It's, the total amount, we seem to be yo-yoing up and down.
Up and down, yeah.
We had been averaging closer to 100,000, we're well over 200 in this one. Last,
In terms of the total warrants, yeah, there's some double payments in here that for some reason we got behind and didn't get a lot of things. You'll see, particularly on there's double on the Wellington Law Firm. There's double on. In fact, there's 3 on the landscaping. And then there's 2 on the contractor for the sewer treatment plant, you know. Yeah. So inadvertently, we didn't get the invoices on time, and then didn't get paid. But now we're trying to catch up towards the end of the fiscal year so we can balance our budgets because we'll close it at the end of June, and then have it ready for the auditor.
Got the sheriff too, 60,000.
Share the fire.
Yeah, and then the sheriff's, the sheriff's.
Double payment? Do we?
Over $100,000.
No, that's, the sheriff department is, that's about 50% of the payment, you know.
For a year. Okay,
It's
so,
paid twice a year, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Twice a year, Roger.
yeah, it's $172,000
The same
a year.
with fire, isn't it?
Yeah, right, yeah. But fire is a quarterly payment. I think that was, Hollister was $38,000, yeah.
Everybody has their mics. Could you check your microphone to see that?
See if your mic's on. Roger, how much do you think of this gross is actually coming back to us? Of the
Well, I think that I counted and there was 8 different refunds, minor stuff like that, but it would probably only accommodated maybe $2,500, $2,000, so. The vast majority of that is a number of double billings, and then the sheriffs and the city of Hollister compose about $120,000 of that.
That Miller Star Regalia is an attorney firm. The second.
Oh, that was there, yeah, right, yeah. That was the interpretation of the MAP Act. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to see Major Brothers in there.
The last one I had was San Juan Batista Committee for $3,000.
That's 2 payments. We generally pay them $1,500 per quarter, and inadvertently that 3rd quarter didn't get paid, so we doubled it up and made the final payment on it.
Any other questions?
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sheriff's reports, I don't believe we have one. Anyone security, any questions about the city report?
Take one and pass it around.
At this looks like we've got the fire chief report here.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing fine, sir. For those that I have not met, I'm Division Chief Lee Alvarez with Hollister Fire. And it's a copy of the report I'm going to be giving you today. It's a short one. Understand that we were not present at the previous meeting. I want to apologize for that in advance. I don't have a legitimate answer for you. The Fire Chief makes those assignments. Tonight he's in Austin, Texas, and I have the charge this week. So if there's any questions, you could ask me during or after, however you wish. So what we have for district number 4 is, this is for the month of April, 57 calls for service. And we have a breakdown in terms of fire, vehicle accidents, 7, fires 2, emergency medical calls 17, and other calls. The other calls are public assist.
Excuse me?
Yes, sir.
And that other calls, is that the same call that happens down on Franklin Street?
Yes, and we have a breakdown on that.
How much of the 30 is that?
Okay, I have that here. $21 calls.
It's 21 calls at its same address?
Yes. And we have been working with San Benito County Health Department, Sheriff's Office, and I'm sure you've heard the history on that.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to say it's something that
Makes sense, yeah.
kind of is getting through the
21 to
lines,
30,
but
and it's like that every month.
it needs to meet a certain criteria for public health to do something. As far as fire, we're committed. If dispatch calls us, we need to go.
Sure. I know you can't help, you have to go.
Yes.
And we appreciate it.
We've been involved in doing a team effort to try to mitigate that, and it's just kind of slips out of our hands at the moment, but
Yeah, and it's been like that for a couple of years now.
yes, sir.
If there's anything that we can do to help, by all means, let us know.
Will do.
We're aware of it and concerned about it, because we know it's just an expense and a problem for you.
Okay.
Chief, before you go on, what is District 4?
District 4 is San Juan and the surrounding area.
Right, but what are the confines of that surrounding area?
San Juan city limits and San Benito County, all the way up to the county line.
From Union?
No, let's define it. I want to say San Juan and San Benito County. I want to know exactly what
It's from Union Road west to 101.
And north to Beta
And
So
yeah, right.
So east to Union Road,
Yes,
north to how far? To the county line?
To 101.
yes.
No, north I
101,
said.
we go up to,
North to the Paha Road?
up to Y Road.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay.
A little
And
beyond.
then south?
Well,
To this,
Canyon and Rent.
really to the Fremont Peak, because it's the
Yeah.
San Juan Canyon, you know,
Oh, yes,
and the
correct.
Salinas Grade
Natural
Road. yeah.
areas and
And then we don't go beyond the 101 into the Aromas Hills.
Okay. So south on 101, how far?
up to the overpass.
Of overpass of what?
129.
one,
156.
Well, before the one.
yeah, it's San Juan Road.
Yes. Up to.
Well, San Juan Road is not 129 or 156. San Juan Road is the Red Barn,
Okay, so.
which is the San Benito County line.
Okay, so the crossover on 101 to the Tri-County line.
Would you look?
Sure.
I'm a captain here with one of the captains with the fire department here in San Juan Bautista.
Okay.
So basically, 101, the bypass right there, 101, 156. That's as far south as we go that way. Because of the way the boundary drops are, we're 101 to Vetable Road on this side of the highway. That side of the highway is all Aromas. It's kind of a weird boundary drop, so that's kind of
Aromas Cal Fire.
exactly. So anything that happens on this side of the freeway, 101 to Vetable Road, including Vetable RV Park, we take those. The Calpine, all that area, that's all our area.
Right.
We do assist Cal Fire with some vehicle accidents because a lot of times when the vehicle accidents come out or the medicals come out, we're not sure exactly where they're at. Because when they dispatch to CHP, they can't give an exact location. So sometimes we get dispatched to theirs, sometimes they get dispatched to ours.
Okay.
So
And then how far south do you guys go?
101, 156 to 101, right there, that little T right there before you start turning on to going to 101. We don't even go over the overpass.
So you don't go to San Juan Road?
No.
And who picks up who picks up 156 to San Juan Road in San Benito County? Cal Fire Aromas Station.
Cal Fire Aromas, yeah.
And then how far west on the other border? How far west do you guys go?
We're hitting, like I said, we're 101, 156 and 101, just right there at that one intersection before you tee off and do it all.
But how much of Aromas?
He doesn't go over 101.
We do not go farther than that area.
So Highway 101 is the boundary going west?
Depending on what side of Highway 101 you're on.
Right, you pick up a little bit of the western edge of 101?
101 going northbound towards Belleville Road.
Then they go on both sides, yeah.
101.
Little narrow road.
Yeah.
This way.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird boundary. I mean, even though it's still San Benito County, Aromas BU's kind of particular on their area. They want to keep their area, even though it's the county. Our response time would be a lot faster, to be honest with you, immensely. But again, it's the Chiefs area where that's our area. They don't want us to go there.
Okay.
To be honest.
Okay.
So it's kind of one of the things where I can't draw you an exact line because of the way they have the boundary draws.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and apologize for the confusion.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much.
We know our districts. Without having the maps.
What you know is if there's a call, you're going. Yeah, you'll figure it out when you're on scene. I know.
And just to, Commissioner DeFree, just to give you a background, when we started this, I instructed the fire engines to go down 101, both directions, and we got threatened with a lawsuit from the Aromas district to say, you will not enter our district.
Okay. So I'd like to comment a little bit on a fire that we had about 2 years ago on Franklin Circle. We did a little drive-by and checking on that strip of grass that caused that structure fire that year, and I'm going to be in contact tomorrow morning with Caltrans to make sure we start
mowing their lawn.
They've done it once, but it's time to do it again. It's already
To do again,
this
yeah,
high.
right. And I called them about 2 weeks ago, and they started right there on south of the Alameda,
Yes,
and then they just got pulled off on another job.
So
But let's remind them, and
I'll give them a reminder tomorrow morning.
right, yeah.
Yes. I see the house is rebuilt, and I don't want that happening to that neighborhood
Yes.
again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll mention it to them at the COG meeting.
Right, sir.
They have a Caltrans rep there.
Okay. Thank you. Under equipment, engine 14, which is your Pierce engine, is currently in service. An update on engine 17. You guys may, some of the members may recall, it's the four-door vehicle that General Motors. It's a 26-year-old vehicle now, and it doesn't go out on call. It's out of service.
Which one is that? I'm sorry.
It's a four-door, like a crew cab.
357.
It's
GMC top gate.
357. Unfortunately, I still like that engine, but unfortunately, it's seen its days. I think it costs more money to put it in active service and actually.
Oh, really? It's done?
Yes, because of the steering mechanism, has some big faults in it where it's going to cost a lot of money. So, if that's something that would be of interest to put in service, then we'd have to supply an estimate for that. But still functions, but it's not safe to be on the road.
Who owns that engine? City of San Juan Bautista owns it, don't
I think it was a joint effort with the City of San Juan and the county at the time. I'd have to look up so I can tell you the correct answer.
Well, as I recall, we got money because I was on the San Juan Fire Department for those 10 years, longer than I want to admit, and got that engine in Louisiana.
Okay.
Coakley
Yes.
and Foley and Scott Friels drove it back from Louisiana all the way to California, no air conditioning.
Yeah, I remember it had a nickname.
357, the Magnum, remember that?
Magnum,
Yeah, exactly. That engine was pretty cool in its day. But you're saying now it's of no use to the city of San Juan Bautista?
It's not for emergency services, no. But we keep
Because it's too big?
No, because of the steering, and it has electrical issues. There's also some pump repairs that need to be looked at, and I can't comment on how recent we gave an update on its conditions and the cost to fix it. We could do that and see what the council would like to go forward with it, or just keep it status quo.
Well, I mean, Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you know this, but I think that's a city asset. I think that in us getting that engine, I think we picked up some money from the county just to do county calls. But I think that is an asset of the city of San Juan Bautista. And at the time, it was a pretty pricey asset. So to put that thing in mothballs.
I could get our maintenance person the task of getting an estimate on cost to get it in service, if that's the pleasure of the council.
But you guys don't run it at all anymore?
No. We do keep it, we start it up, we keep it clean,
but you don't take it out?
If the steering's not safe.
The numbers, then a decision can be made.
So, I think this ties back to a conversation that I had with a couple of folks, with you guys, I think, earlier, or a week or so ago. We're looking for direction from the department for what your needs are. Coming to us, asking us if we want to put it back into service is not really the way this should be driven.
Well, we would have a recommendation for you today.
Yeah, we need an assessment of all the equipment. It's part of the contract, has never been done. We don't really understand the status of the broader picture. It would be very helpful to have that completed. One of the conversations we're having as council, we're engaged in budget meetings, and we have a sinking fund to replace engine 14, but one of the discussion items during the budget meeting was that the timetable that we have established is totally inadequate, but I'm not sure, we need input from the department to tell us how quickly, at the current rate of usage, the expectation, what's the expected life of engine 14 and whatever else we may need to do.
Understand, I will.
We really need that because we've got, our entire city budget, our general fund is 1.6 million. And if we got to spend $500,000 for a fire truck, that's going to be a real problem.
Understood. I will start getting this. This report.
Find a new engine.
Trucks have ladders that go up to fourth story parking structures. That's how the city of Hollister got their truck, was the 4-story parking structure.
Anyway, so that would be, we just need feedback.
Yeah, definitely. What I'll do is I'll get a report together with all the equipment, the age of the equipment, and
estimated time of
years maintenance
placement.
cost on it. As you know, we pick up the maintenance costs on the Pierce, and when it goes out of service, we put one of the other fleet engines in there.
Yeah.
But you want like a long-term picture and a status quo of your equipment.
Yeah, and if there is a need for additional equipment, we need to start budgeting for it over on a multi-year timetable.
Okay, I got my answer.
Thank you.
I don't like surprises.
Okay, if I could go on to...
Yes, sir, sorry.
To your rescue unit. If you recall, when Chief D'Angelo was here, he approached the council with trying to convert it to a little mini pumper.
Yeah.
And then that didn't go through, so that unit's serviceable, but it's not going on rescue calls because we don't have the staffing to send. We only have 2 people here in San Juan. So, and Hollister has Rescue 61. So engine 14 would go first, and our rescue's coming from downtown. And that's a more efficient service.
Okay.
From the Fire Marshal's office, and in terms of public education for the month of April, what we have here is 2 completed school inspections, which is mandated inspections every year, and finalizing the hotels, motels. It's probably something that hadn't been occurring for a while, but it's an ongoing state mandated inspections for life safety, of course. Whether you have motels here or only hotels, that just addresses everything. And lastly, we have Red Cross conducting a smoke detector giveaway on May the 20th. And the fire department will be assisting the Red Cross. What they'll do is they'll be soliciting for residents for the detectors. This Red Cross personnel will be doing the install, and we'll be there to assist and take information and help out. Potentially we'll be there also to install, but we don't want to commit 100% because our crew's in service. So.
Okay, great.
If there's any questions on this, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, talk to the council here a little bit about who's doing inspections right now, fire inspections. I know I did one with you for Earthbound, and we got through it. But is CAL FIRE doing anything as regards fire inspections for permits these days, or is it all Hollister City?
It's all Hollister Fires for other county businesses and all of downtown San Juan.
So CAL FIRE is completely out of the inspection business
in the county, yes.
in San Bernardino County, and it's all handled through your office.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, also a question I had was through the fire prevention office, we do plant checks for fire sprinkler systems,
right?
And the inspections for those residential sprinklers. Hasn't been discussed, and I don't know the fine lines on the contracts, but that's something we could assist the city of San Juan with. Field inspections, we have 2 inspectors now. It was myself and Battalion Chief Bedoya, so that's something that could be a benefit.
And that would be for both residential and commercial?
Yes.
Interesting, okay. Thank
Does
you.
your department do the Coupa inspections for hazmat?
San Bernardino County Environmental Health has that now.
Okay.
We used to. County Health has it now. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did we, I think there was a public comment on this. Julie?
Yeah. I blinked and missed the sheriff's report and the level security 1 information. Apparently we again don't have a report from the sheriff's office.
Correct.
And I did find the level.
And excuse me, Jillian, and is that true both written and oral? Neither from the sheriff's department, nothing?
The sheriff's department's been submitting quarterly, and when we saw Captain Taylor last month, that was a quarterly report.
Which was a verbal, in-person presentation, correct?
Yeah, we had a written. He gave us a report sheet.
Right, but I'm sorry, Jillian.
It's okay.
But you brought it up. And I meant to ask a question about this because Mayor Anna and myself, or maybe it was just he and I, we met with Sheriff Thompson and Captain LaMonica, and I thought made it pretty clear that we didn't need an in-person report every month, but we would like to have a written report every month, correct?
I'd have to go back to my notes, but I thought the quarterly was the conversation.
Oh.
We agreed to the quarterly.
And maybe I stand corrected, so it's a quarterly written report?
I believe so.
I think the contract called for monthly. You can ask for monthly.
The contract does call for a monthly in-person report. And I thought that we were giving them kind of a break and saying, like, you don't have to be here every month in person, but we would like to see something in writing. That's my recollection, so, anyway. Okay, so, again, sorry, but you brought it
The
up.
monthly in writing is nice, and I'm looking at the level 1, and I'm wondering, I haven't been to meetings for a few months, so I might be behind the times here. But did we ever work out, or did council ever work out whether or not level 1 would be communicating with the sheriff's department? Because there's a few things on their report, like 2 to 4 customers outside of mom and pop's were seen drinking, that really should be reported to the sheriffs and not just show up here. And I'd like to know, are they communicating with each other, A. And the other question I had was, it refers to Officer Morgan, Officer Rodriguez. Are they called officers, the level 1 security? Because I thought, well, when I first saw Officer Rodriguez, I thought that was a sheriff's department person. And then I saw another officer, and it doesn't sound like they really did anything, so I thought, well, maybe that's level 1
Yeah,
security calls themselves officer.
That's their internal, right?
They're internal.
And the sheriff has expressed his satisfaction with the levels of communication. He
So
says it's
there-
been very satisfactory.
So there is some communication on
Yes.
on items like
Yes,
people seen outside of
Yes.
a bar drinking
yes.
and that sort of. Okay, well that's good to know.
Communications working well.
Yeah.
And then my other question was regarding the fire department, and I think that it was referenced a little bit about the local situation that really seems like it ought to go to social services and not to the fire department all the time, and it sounds like council is addressing that as well as they can, with Hollister really being in charge of that sort of thing, because it always comes to mind about how if your alarm goes off, 2 or 3 times with a false alarm, the sheriff starts charging you for coming. And it seems like maybe the fire department ought to have something like that for calls that are not true emergencies. And if this person is having an emergency, as often as I understand the fire department is reporting to the home, it seems like it is a better situation for social services than to have that person living at home, because it sounds like the calls are almost daily.
21 times out of 30 days, that's
I don't think you get any argument from
anybody.
us. It's, and as the chief said, they are addressing it with social services, but that's, it's not our.
And they can't not respond.
Right.
They cannot
Yeah,
not
no,
respond.
I
And
understand.
they've resisted, there has been conversation in the past about charging for, in certain situations, but the department was very much opposed to doing that.
Oh, I see.
Because I think.
Because it seemed like a simple
Because they didn't
solution.
want to be discouraging people from calling. But if that recommendation came from them, or certainly there could be a conversation.
But Mr. Mayor, I just don't want there to be an expectation on the part of this council or this city that there's something that we could do or should do or not doing. It's a difficult situation. We all know the house that we're talking about, and we know the resident of that house, and she's a friend of mine, as I know she's all a friend of yours. It's a tough situation. I think we're looking for solutions for that, because I know her and she does need help. I've gone over her house lots of times. I've pushed her home. And maybe it was 4 or 5, maybe it was 4 or 5 calls that the Hollister Fire Department didn't have to do. But I think we're all looking for solutions. So if the chief here and his administration can come up with an answer to that, awesome. If anyone else has any ideas on how we deal with that, social services or someone else, she needs kind of day-to-day help, That's the problem.
And it's impossible for any official not to respond to a call for help.
That's right.
You cannot do that.
No, I understand.
As much as it's...
You can't not respond.
Yeah.
I just thought the charging might be a simple solution.
We tried that. I think we have tried that.
Well, it's good to know that level 1 is working well with the sheriff's department, and I'm glad that you're happy with your choice to go with that.
That's all we've heard.
I haven't seen them much around. I saw them when they first started, and then I guess they just haven't needed to be in my neighborhood. I don't know.
Well, you got to get up. You got to stay up late or get up early.
Well, yeah, obviously for the report, they've been around and looking at things.
My wife goes to work quite early, and they have not stopped her, but engaged her on more than one occasion because she was loitering at an unsavory time.
I've never run into them. I'm not out that hours.
Well, your wife's pretty good looking, maybe I just wanted to encourage her.
That's how I got started.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Okay, library report. Any questions on the library report? Library report. No.
No.
Okay. Roger.
Okay.
4G.
Yeah, right.
Administrative report.
Well, Public Works, they're finishing up the street striping, and not quite finished yet, but they'll be, right now they're on weed abatement, and we're really pushing it because we sent out a lot of weed abatement orders, and we want to make sure our house is in order before we start pushing the property owners to ditch theirs and everything. And they'll get back on the painting the curbs and finishing up the street striping. And then the asphalt patching, there's a lot of chuck holes and potholes around, and that's a high priority. And now that the warm weather's coming, they'll be applying the asphalt down on almost all the streets. The planning department, I'm going to let Matt take there. He's put a good report together.
Yeah, so I finally had a little break in between big planning projects. I don't know if you noticed, but the last planning commission meeting was relatively short, which was nice. And that, constitutes my free time, which I can fill up with all the other things I need to do. So one of those things was focusing on all of the forms that we have in-house. I don't know if you've noticed, but all of the business license applications, building permit application packets have all been simply photocopied forms that have just been photocopied for years, so there wasn't really a way to make edits to them, and they hadn't been updated in a long time. So I went through and redid all of those packets. Part of redoing that packet was actually putting together a computation sheet showing the formula for computing business license taxes, which has already come in handy multiple times over the last couple of days, where businesses that are renewing their licenses want to know how it's computed. And so either myself or Carmen just email the computation sheet so they could actually go through it and do it themselves and see exactly how we arrive at that number. So that's been really helpful. And then I also actually made Carmen a little Excel spreadsheet with the formulas in there, so all she has to do is type in the number and boom, it computes the tax for her. I also have been working hard on the iWork software. Just so you guys know, there's multiple parts to that, all the different modules, and so the one I knew I needed to do first was the business license, and so I went through, worked with Carmen a lot on that, and has just recently completely finished it, where even now you can print it out onto our already pre-printed paper with the official looking licenses. So that one is done, good to go. Carmen was actually just inputting the first 17 or 18 today, and so that one's off and running. We're almost done with the building permit module. I'm working right now on the final sort of aesthetic view of what's going to print out for that, and I just ran it by the county assessor's office today to make sure that, because usually we give them, I guess, the yellow copy, and I wanted to make sure that all the information that they need was on the one that I was putting together, and they said that it was. So then I still need to run it by Deb to make sure that all of the legal language that we need is on there. I put what I think is required, but hopefully we'll get signed off on that, and then Roger signed off, so we're pretty close on that as well.
So is this going to be fill in on the web or on the computer? Or
not quite yet. We're going to start with the in-person, so they're still going to fill out the paper, and then Carmen's going to put it in the computer. This is more just to start having electronic records. I really want to wait until the website is revised first, and then it'll be sort of a portal link that we add on the website that people will eventually be able to just sort of go, apply for building permit, it'll take them to the iWork page, and they'll go ahead and do it themselves. But we really needed to focus, I felt, first on learning how to do it in-house with our current staffing. Because, if we don't know how to do it, we can't explain to them how to do it. So it's just sort of a baby steps type of thing. And like I said, the business license was sort of the easiest to start with, and it was the one where we had this the nearest deadline because all of those get renewed at the end of June. So I think we're on a good track to finish that up relatively quickly. And what else? Oh, another thing I came across was that I guess Connie had been working with the library staff on updating their management software. She was going with an open source one called Koha, which I guess started in New Zealand. And I just found out about this because Dee Dee was getting emails from this company, but Connie had been heading the project. So Dee Dee knew what was going on, but hadn't had much first-hand experience communicating with them. And the go-live date was June, so June 5th or something. So I kind of found out that we were right about to meet the training sessions that the staff was scheduled to do, and no one kind of knew exactly what was going on with it. So I called one of the representatives from the company and talked to her for about 45 minutes, got up to speed on everything. Went over and met with Dee Dee, got a read on how comfortable she was with the project and where it was, and updated on my conversation with the company. And they've done, I think, about 2/3 of their training now, and she says now that they've been able to work with them one-on-one are feeling really comfortable with it. So like I said, I talked to her today, and they feel like it's on track and that they'll have it online by the beginning of June. So, and I also asked that she set up a time for me, and if you guys wanted to do it too, a time to come in and sort of give a little tutorial to us on how that's going to work and what it's going to look like and stuff like that. So that was just an out of the blue one. Then we've also been working on the recommendations from the Strategic Planning Committee. We're going to cover that a little bit later with the staff hours discussion, and I know you guys saw that really long staff report, and we'll get into that later. But we explored 6 different options, and there's obviously more, but I wanted to give you guys some things to chew on in terms of how we might adjust staff hours to address that recommendation that you all seem to kind of latch on to that office hours one being an important one. So I ran with that, and we'll see where it goes. And then the website revision team is now made up of myself, Darlene Boyd, Jill Pagarin, and Maria Madrigal. We've already met a couple times. We've put together all of the initial materials that we needed to get the process started. So there was a whole design discovery survey that we went through and did, and talked about color palettes and sort of branding and fonts and all that kind of stuff. One of the things that came out of that was the need for a new city logo, which we're also going to cover a little later tonight. And then we have our kickoff meeting to meet the whole design team and all the rest of that on May 23rd. So.
And Mike, the department there, we got the budget rough drafted out, and we'll be holding our next budget session next week. Progress is being done on well number 5. We got the pad graded and everything, and Majority Brothers is ready to start drilling the test hole out there any day now. I talked with them this morning, and they'll probably be moving in the next couple days. I've contact with PG&E to start doing the development to get power to the well once we decide after the test well, and then we go with the thing to bring in the power for it. Because we'll have to run the test. Well number 6A, we call it, that's the one that's by well number 3, and just to give the council a direction there, we've met with the property owner, and he was interested if we wanted to relocate our water treatment plant to close to the well rather than have it at well number 3, which is decommissioned and has high nitrates. So we've did a plan, and we've showed him how it could be moved and relocate the water treatment plant right next to the well that we would purchase him from, and then we would relinquish the 3/4 of an acre on well number 3 site, and then give him well number 3 for his agricultural need, and then relinquish the 3. He would give us a 3/4 acre site at the northwest corner.
And who's that property owner?
Dale Koch. So everything is pulling together. We've identified about 13 items that have to be done, and we went through each one of those items and everything, and he's going to go back and talk to his part and everything, and we'll probably be meeting either this Friday or maybe next Monday.
So is the water treatment plant the pellet plant? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move that from its present location
just move
down the road?
Yeah, move it over about 400 feet.
Okay.
Need to look into that. That's right.
Okay. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you, Roger.
Yeah, how long is the water treatment modification going to take? What are you going to do to it? Your last paragraph, Wastewater treatment plant, well, not waste, excuse me, water treatment plants being finalized with modification of the plans to meet the city's budget costs. The modification will allow the city to phase in construction, so.
Yeah, that's already been done, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We redid the foundation. We're not putting a building over it at this
What?
time. We're not putting a structure over it this time. It's going to be on a slab with some outbuildings there for the laboratory and restroom, and the building will come later.
Okay.
Roger, has anybody looked at that? It's been sitting in there idle for a while. I'm
Yeah.
concerned that we get in there and something inside is
Well,
gone
yeah.
bad.
It's rusted, I'll tell you, guarantee you that.
It's a- Yeah,
It's been sitting out there in the rain?
yeah.
Yeah,
What's wrong with it sitting out there in the rain for 10 years?
we've looked at it and
You're so
talked with
pessimistic.
Procore, and they're going to examine all the rubber seals and stuff like that, and gaskets and stuff like that. There's a lot of stainless steel. We've had a lot of the stainless steel stored in the Public Works Department and stuff like that. So it also came with a lot of materials that were ready for the startup, and that stuff has been deteriorated, and we'll probably have to buy new materials on that, stuff like that.
You mean the internal media, the resin and
The
such?
resin, yeah,
Okay,
right.
yeah.
Mhm, yeah.
Those seals, if they're outside, they don't last long. You're gonna have to buy all new seals.
We've gone through it about 3 different times and tried to protect it, and had canvases on there and everything, but it's been sitting there now, I think, 8 years. Mhm.
8?
Yeah, 8 or 9 years.
10. I
10.
exaggerated.
Yeah.
Would you have any kind of guess of how much additional cost that's going to be?
At this time, I don't know. Procore is going to give us an idea of what it's going to take to replace all those gaskets and rubber membranes. Yeah. Mhm.
Because I've had motors sitting around for 8 years and they ain't worth a damn.
Yeah, most of the
With your old car, it just gets better.
most of the motors and the controls and stuff have been inside our base at the corporation there.
Okay.
Jim, give me a story.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
An antique home.
City council committee reports. Jim, you want to start us
Yeah,
off? Fire off?
well, the first thing I can say is that our
Excuse me
county...
one sec, Jim.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilwoman
There was
Garcia.
another,
Do that in there real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I think originally with the contract with ProCorp, they were supposed to come and help us set it up. I imagine that 8 years later, they're probably not still willing to honor that part of the contract.
No, they are.
They are?
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's unpaid? I mean, that was included in the original contract, wasn't it?
Yes, yes. Mhm.
Oh, okay, but
Yeah.
we would have to pay for any seals and anything that need replacing.
yeah.
But they are still going to help.
Oh, yeah, right. I've called them probably 7 or 8 times and talked to them about it, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, they're still in business. How
Yeah.
about that?
So just so I'm clear, because you did this deal when you were on the council.
Oh, absolutely not. I was out. No.
Okay, I misspoke. You have
Yes,
more knowledge.
you
You have
did.
more
One of your
knowledge.
buddies had more to do with it than I did, by far.
Yeah, you have more knowledge of it than I do.
Yeah.
So is the
I
deal?
was very aware and very against it.
Okay. So is the deal today, Roger, just so I understand, is that the parts, so to speak, the seals and so forth, we have to pay for, but labor will be free? Not free, but part of the original
The
deal?
advice was included.
Yeah.
So we have to pay parts only? Labor's free?
No.
We're already paid?
Part of the labor is free, not all of it,
Not
you
all
know.
of it.
It was,
The
Is that what you said?
the
contract was to set it up. It wasn't
the setup
to
and
replace any
assembly,
parts.
yeah, the setup and assembly, it's a very complicated things, but the operation of it and the trial is not, and we have to pay for Procore to do that, and train the operators.
Okay. And does that ring true with the deal that you had in mind when you
Yeah,
stood up here?
yeah, it was just to set it up. The reason some of us were against it and tried to talk the council out of it, we tried to talk the council out of a lot of things, borrowing the money, buying that instead of working with the water district and a lot of different things. But, and my husband actually did a lot of research on Procorp on the internet at that time, and we didn't believe they'd still be in business now. So to their credit, they are still in business, and they do have probably still just the one place in California, Santa Clarita.
Santa Clarita is still operating, yes.
Yeah. That was one of the things against it was, why aren't there more if it's such a great idea? So, yeah,
I can answer that, but I'd rather do it privately later, but it's not important to this council.
Yeah, I'm gonna forget what I was gonna say now, because it was about moving the stuff. So, Dale Koch is willing to work with the city for no money exchange, just for a property exchange?
No, that's
It
not
hasn't been
there.
negotiated.
It hasn't been negotiated yet.
It hasn't been negotiated, so there may be because that also happened before I was on council and before you were city manager. We paid an exorbitant amount of price for that 3/4 acres. So I hope Dale Koch finds it as valuable as we do, because it's far more, with the cost of what we paid for that was far more than it's worth as ag land.
Who'd you pay that money to?
I didn't.
No, not. Really? No, I thought you and Bob wrote a check. Who did the city of San Juan Bautista buy that for at that exorbitant price?
His
Vacareza.
Yeah, Vacareza.
Vacareza?
Not Ron, the other one.
Okay. Okay.
There was nothing compared.
Ron worked out.
And how much was the?
Let's reel this in. Do we
Okay.
have
Yeah.
anything more for today?
No, I just wanted to know.
Pertinent to today?
I wanted, it's his fault, not mine. I just wanted to know if there was a monetary exchange in addition to.
It's too early
And
to
it's
tell.
too early to tell. And B, the cost of moving the equipment even 400 feet, will that be?
There would be additional costs here,
It'll be
yeah,
a-
right, yeah.
a rather large cost, I assume, because it's.
No, it's not going to be a large cost, but there are going to be additional costs.
Yeah,
And I've got 3 or 4 contractors that are going to provide a lot of service for that.
fantastic, that's great to hear, thank you.
Okay. Council committee reports, Mr. Jim.
LAFCO, well, you got to say one thing, that our county supervisors are as attuned to the budget as we are, because Supervisor Botello and Supervisor De La Cruz kept anybody from, they wanted to increase the reserves for LAFCO, and we said we all keep reserves in our own budgets. We don't have to have reserves on our reserves. So it'll be approved next week, which Councilman DeVries will be there. I will be in Indianapolis watching cars go around very fast.
May 25, I'll be there.
Yeah, and but the budget is the same as it was last year. So it's working well.
Fire and intergovernmental?
Fire and intergovernmental, I didn't make. Fire, we pretty much heard the same thing. It's the same thing they give us to the fire council.
No, I think the only committee that I'm on is with Mr. Freeman regarding economic development and business, and
We didn't really meet.
we didn't meet. I'm just thinking if I have anything else to report. I don't think that I do. Very pleased to see the Donkey Deli building going full speed ahead.
Richter's also.
Pardon?
Richter's, what used to be La Casa Rosa.
Yeah.
Richter's.
Doing very well.
And the Posada clan had a big party a week or 2 ago, was celebrating their grand opening or reopening. So I think some good things are happening in town. But I think that you and I need to get together soon and kind of rekindle that fire. Right, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing on Target on that Thursday.
Okay. John?
So, I have nothing to report on AMDAG because we had a budget meeting that night. As for the water district, the really important thing that pertains to this city council and this city is that once we get the pellet plant going, people who own a water softener can turn it into the water district and receive a $300 check, which I don't know if it's a conflict of interest, but I might be first in line.
We applaud it.
Okay.
Anything that gives it a...
First one.
Okay, thank you.
You made a mistake.
Item 4 is Strategic Plan Committee report. Do we have a report? I don't see Shauna.
So the committee tried to meet last week or whenever it was. I'm getting old, I'm forgetting. We did not have a quorum, so we don't really have anything formal to report.
I would add, though, that this unofficially came out at the meeting. The San Juan Committee video piece on ABC came out, and it's wonderful, and John sent me the link, so I posted it on the front page of the website. So if anyone has free time and hasn't seen that, just go to our homepage of the city website and watch that video, because it's a great representation of San Juan, very well made, and I think everybody will like it. I sent it to my parents, and my dad immediately said, "We gotta go to San Juan for lunch some weekend." I said, "Yeah, let's do it."
It is really good. It is really good. So you guys did really good, and you got your money's worth, and I congratulate you on it.
Thank you for supporting us.
Okay, action items. Consider appointment of city clerk. We don't have any applicants.
No, I did not.
You got a phone call.
I've gotten 3 phone calls.
3 phone calls.
One of them was from the person that ran against Connie.
Yes, yes. And she's the one that's shown the most interest. And I communicated with her by email just even a couple hours ago. And said, just be there. And she's not here yet.
Okay. But we haven't, I think you said there was no...
I did not receive any resumes and cover letters or any information to disseminate.
Okay.
I could add on that, you have 60 days in which to make the appointment, or you must call for a special election to replace the clerk.
So we gotta hurry.
What day are we at now?
The 60 days are up from her, I believe the former city clerk resigned on March 27th by
That's
email.
when she tendered her resignation.
Tendered her resignation, so 60 days would be May 26th.
Oh, jeez.
It's not when the council accepted it?
And what does a special election cost? Roughly speaking, in a town of 1800.
I'd have to check. I don't know what
It's thousands of dollars.
It's going to cost thousands, yeah, it's quite pricey.
So we have to do something.
Yeah, the
within
special
the next few
election would be in
weeks or
November of
spend thousands.
2017. Yeah.
So do we then need to have, would that require then some sort of special meeting?
If you don't do it tonight, it would require a special meeting prior to the 60 days.
Thank you for reminding us.
Can you explain what the city clerk does again? Maybe someone in the audience might.
Yeah, it's defined in...
Bob, if you're interested.
Yeah, you got it.
Tonight's the night.
We've got...
Maybe get a dog park while you do it.
Do we have a job description available on the website?
It's in the code. I mean, there are statutory duties in the municipal code.
So we're probably going to need to add this then to our special meeting on the 24th. And that would be permissible, would it not?
Yes, you could add it as an item to that special meeting, yes.
Pardon me, Jim, what was that?
I have an early flight the next day.
Okay, so we have a budget meeting on the 24th. Let's expect...
Yes, it is.
Yes, Jim is very excited about going to Indianapolis.
Bucket list.
I understand. I understand. So, okay, so, gosh, we're going to have to, I don't know what to do to step up the recruitment.
I think if we have somebody interested...
What have we done so far for recruitment, Trish?
It's been posted on Bonito Link, I believe, and the city website, and sent it out to my mass distribution. Hit up all my friends in town.
So it sounds like you don't have any other ideas about...
No, I'm gonna...
You've exhausted all what you could think of to do.
Yeah.
And we have the woman who finished second in the election.
Yeah. She's,
Of two.
Of two.
she's in college, and she did say she was doing finals this week.
Oh, okay.
That might have kept her from coming in
is that
tonight.
time.
I mean, even she submitted a resume or something.
She did or did not?
She did not, but I definitely encourage you to do so.
Yeah, I think there may be a misconception amongst the public about what the scope of the position is. It's not a day-to-day job. It's an oversight position, much like the city treasurer, where they're sort of overseeing the process and checking and rechecking. But it's not something that is, it's not a day-to-day.
We have been asking
that is your role.
them to clerk the meetings and take minutes,
Right. But,
Which meetings? Council and
meetings.
planning commission?
No.
Just
I do-
council?
I do planning commission.
So once a month at night, and then the oversight that the mayor spoke of.
Okay.
That's not too onerous.
No,
And there's
no,
no,
it's
there's
not.
no compensation involved
$100 stipend.
per month? 100 a month?
So, okay.
I still say Bob Gray's the guy. Sounds perfect. Bob, you're retired now.
Yeah.
You get that big state fund retirement check coming.
And you walk the door and
It's
say,
time for you to give back. Come on.
Does the
Well, I think you let the applicant know because I didn't know about this time problem. I thought we had forever to do this.
Yeah, it was just
No.
also brought to me.
So we ought to let
I
people
really
know
thought she showed up.
that we have to do something.
Yes.
And maybe that'll get somebody off the stick.
Okay.
yeah.
But we're going to have to do something next Thursday. Yeah.
Well, I
Next
suppose you,
Wednesday.
I suppose you could always appoint somebody on, what would we say, the 24th? And then they could resign right away. Go through this again, probably start another 60-day clock running.
Hey, there you go.
Because we
I'm
can't.
just trying to look at the ways to save a special election.
Yeah, because it's what, $30,000 or something like that.
A special election would be very expensive.
Yeah.
And it could not be held until November of 2017.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have one for a while anyway, yeah.
You wouldn't have a special election, but you would have to call for it.
Right.
Prior.
But we wouldn't have a clerk for a while, you
would
know,
not.
about 6
Yeah.
months.
That's
5
correct.
to 6 months, yeah.
So we just get enough people to volunteer and resign, and we'll get to.
I'm trying to look for a second.
I'm not, I should note that I'm not advocating that.
No, but it's nice to know that's an option.
We gotta find.
Because you're the guy that told us that we had to do it within 60.
I am that guy, so.
I think we're
You
gonna
have
take it more
redeemed yourself.
seriously.
Yeah. Clearly, we all need to take it a little more seriously and find and
But we,
do
yeah.
some recruiting.
I would like to point out, though, that Connie was available. I sent you an email and said this. She tendered a resignation. I received it on the 27th, because it was an email, and that's when I opened it. That's a Monday. But she did not start her new job until April 10th, and she was virtually available to do city clerk. I mean, if you want to give another week.
Couple more weeks.
Yeah.
10 weeks more.
I think we had
And she,
There's a statute in the government code, however, that addresses when a resignation is effective.
Which says when received,
When the event occurs, which would be the tendering of her resignation.
the receipt.
Yeah, unless in certain cases people resign and say, my resignation will be effective prospectively in some way, then that could affect it. But
So we got
in this
two.
case, I don't think that would.
well, in her resignation letter, she said she'd be present at the April 18th meetings. To me, she was intending to
Well,
do her.
without seeing that letter, I wouldn't want to opine on it.
It's in your packet.
it's not.
Her
It's
resignation.
not in your resignation?
No, it was in last month's packet,
Oh,
So, city,
okay, just a second.
to the city attorney, so we've covered the resignation, I think, pretty thoroughly. What needs to happen before the new city clerk is seated, sworn in, all of that stuff? Like, let's say we find somebody next week. What needs to happen before our deadline of May 27 in order to avoid special elections and penalties or anything else?
Council only has to meet with a quorum and adopt and pass a resolution appointing the city clerk.
That's it.
That was it. That's it.
3 of you.
And we have that, and we have to the May 27th to do so.
May 26th.
26.
Yeah.
So you were suggesting 24,
Well, we have a meeting
Scheduled
scheduled
the 24th.
for the 24th.
but let's be clear here. That's not to sit down and chat about it. We got to have somebody ready to go.
That's correct.
We have to vote on it pretty much on that night.
Right, you would adopt a resolution.
So the chatting about it and so forth, in order to not violate the Brown Act, what do we do about that?
Well, could
let's say John Freeman finds someone at Vertigo tomorrow who's willing to do it. How do we vet this person and talk to it and do all that needs to be done in 2 weeks?
Staff can do it.
I'll vouch for their taste and good coffee, but that's it.
Do you want to, should we appoint an ad hoc?
That's what I was going to suggest. You could appoint
Yeah, that's a
two
great
members.
idea. I think that'd be, because then you don't have to worry about the Brown Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could appoint
noticing
two
all
members of
that
the
stuff.
council to act as an ad hoc committee. That would be appropriate under the agenda.
I think that
Appointing ad
makes a
hoc.
lot of sense.
Appoint the ad hoc and charge the ad hoc with responsibility of finding somebody, grab them by the collar, and so that on the 24th at that meeting that you were talking about, we're voting on somebody.
Okay.
But a lot of ground needs to be covered between tonight and
Yeah,
then.
exactly.
That's all I'm
Okay.
saying.
So, an ad hoc committee consisting of,
Julian Cosia is
Oh,
volunteering.
no, I'm not volunteering. So they just have to be a registered voter in San Juan?
In the city limits of San Juan.
Within the city limits of San Juan?
do they need to be a registered voter?
Yes, they have to be part of the electorate.
Okay,
That's what that means, right?
so we need to define that.
Yeah, I just wanted
Do
to...
they need to be a
Being part of
registered
the
voter?
electorate means a registered voter, right? So that would be someone over...
Jolene, you look like you need an extra $100 a month.
No.
I don't, without having researched it, I don't believe that if you are a member of the electorate, you would only need to be a resident of San Juan. I don't believe you would necessarily need to be
Yes.
registered at the time.
That's what I wanted to clarify, because they have to be registered voters, correct, the council?
Yeah.
No.
They don't either?
You don't?
Residents.
I didn't realize that. Okay. That
We can't, I don't think we can force anybody to exercise their...
Okay. So, Dan, would you,
Yeah, I'll do it.
okay. Anyone else? John?
I'm busy.
You're busy.
I'm not making eye contact.
Jim knows more than anybody in town. He's Mr. Sociable.
Well, I'm not too, I have a lot of chicken scratches here, which means I got a lot happening.
Well, we just got a committee of one.
Is that permissible, an ad hoc committee of one?
Why not?
Yes,
Okay.
less than a quorum.
I don't mean meeting with you, you set it up. I kind of,
Yeah. So
Okay.
put John
Jim,
to it.
okay, so we are, I
Look at
am
that.
creating an
We'll do
ad
the
hoc
times that are
committee
convenient for us.
consisting of
You just gotta beat the bushes.
Dan DeVries,
Yeah.
council members DeVries and West, to recruit and vet a new city clerk.
Find somebody.
You know, she did participate in the debate that we had in September for the city, Yolanda here, for the city
At the
election.
VFW?
Yes, and I remember her as a gung-ho person, and so, you know, she'd be the first I'd try to rope in.
yeah, and she may not realize that we have a time constraint.
Yeah, I'm sure she doesn't.
'Cause I didn't.
None of us did either.
She's, she's.
Yeah.
Well, back then, there was no time constraint because Connie had
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
taken the job with San Jose.
Okay. So, are we
Yep.
ready
So-
with that one? We've got her.
Can you make
action
that phone
plan.
call to her?
Okay.
What's her name?
Oh, Yolanda?
Yolanda, yeah.
Okay.
Do you have her phone number?
Yeah.
I have her email, but
I believe I have
Yeah.
her phone.
the phone number I have when she filled out the paper is like...
Send me her contact information tomorrow. I'll reach out to her.
Perfect.
And then Jim and I'll have coffee with her or something and see what's up. And then we're not gonna just limit, this isn't gonna be go rope her in only.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to,
Yeah, I mean, she should be the first
like
one
I
to
said,
know.
beat the
because-
bushes and see if anyone else is interested in
Because
it.
I think Jolene is probably going to be,
But can I ask one question, Mr. Mayor? Is the mission of this ad hoc committee to bring somebody back to this council on the 24th and
Make a
Jim and I say,
recommendation.
this is who Jim and I think should be
Recommendation,
should be the city clerk?
Yes.
Jeez.
this is who Dan thinks and this is who I think.
That's okay too.
Why don't you have them bring as many people as
Yeah.
possible
Yeah.
and let us make the choice?
Yeah.
How many, that's fine too. How many do you want, Tony?
27.
Hey, we don't have that much.
You're lucky to count one so far.
realistically, I think if you get beyond 3 resumes, it'll be too chaotic.
I always work with targets, right? So would it please this council to have 3 applicants? Is that what we should shoot for?
If at all possible.
3? Okay.
I think so.
And we got 1, hopefully, and we got 2 more. All right.
Okay, action item 5B, consider redesign of the city logo.
Okay, so I mentioned this earlier, going through the website redesign process. I realized through working with Trish that our current logo is 22 years old, and the only electronic copies we have of it are the scanned copies of the original one that's in the vault. This is a problem because it's not a vector file, it's not scalable, it's not really high resolution. It's going to look terrible if we tried to use it on a website, and it doesn't even really look good on our documents. So this is just something that needs to happen. The San Juan Committee recently underwent a really extensive branding exercise with Kathy Shipper Design. They came up with, the beautiful logo that's up on the wall there in the frame, which, they've offered the city could use that one if we wished. But we would really like to have one that sort of is the city seal style of logo, similar to the ones that I included in the staff report. In both color and black and white. It was the basis of the pin that you've probably seen around. And staff just is looking for direction as to whether to do this. We really hope you say yes. But then also whether you'd like to just hire someone to replicate this as closely as possible. I'm not sure what the process was when they went through and did this last time, and whether this was, set in stone. This is exactly how they wanted to represent the city. Maybe it's a new time, you want a new image, that kind of stuff. Or whether you want, I don't know, just keep it the same. So I also talked with Kathy Shipper a little bit more, just to get a rough estimate of what it would cost. She said probably 2 hours. I mean, something like this is pretty easy for them, and approximately $300 or so. So I would just ask for your direction.
So
300. Sorry, can I jump in, John?
Sure.
$300 to replicate the existing logo, but to come up with a whole different thing is going to be a whole lot more money than that. I know, Kathy. Would you agree?
Possibly. It depends on exactly what you're looking for from them. So if they just said do a different artistic rendering of the mission or something.
I'm just referring to the price quote that you got of $300. That's to digitize.
Essentially, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But if this council said no, we want to go a completely different direction, and that it's not going to be for $300.
It could definitely be more, yes.
Okay.
Which is why I was asking how much you were willing to spend. That's what my last sentence there is, how much we're authorized to spend.
So I kind of disagree with the premise, basically. I personally think that Kathy's is best, and we should keep it for consistency. I think it would be best to be consistent all across, the branding all the way across. When I first got elected, I asked our esteemed mayor if we had business cards available, and he said, no, you could just do your own, And so I did do my own, and I went to Ms. Shipper, and I asked her if I could use the logo that the San Juan Committee commissioned her to do. And I did do that. And I think the business cards look very nice. If you haven't seen them, I think you have one, and I think...
I just like how you carry them in your pocket, John.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, there's a coupon for a free pizza on the back. That's pretty good.
Anyway, I think it's a lot better to keep it consistent. I really do, and it's a great logo. We don't have to put the lift your spirit if you don't want to, But I would think keep, and she's already designed it, so you could probably have it for $300.
Let me ask you, is the old one, is that on our trucks?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'd have to change all that?
Well, we really do want to, whatever we use, whether it's that or something else, we'd like to get a new logo for the trucks as well. Yeah.
The heat thing.
That's technical talk. We put that in layman's terms for you.
Hair dryers. Yeah.
Those newfangled things.
Well, I agree with John. That's a nice logo. I think it's good.
My feeling is I like the old one. I just showed the mayor the county's logo, which surprisingly ours looks very much
I think
very
that,
similar. The county logo, which all the years I spent at the county, I used to always say this because I always had to be parochial about San Juan Bautista. I said, you guys have our mission as your logo to San Benito County. And here we have the San Juan Bautista logo, and in fact has the mission. The only addition that the county makes in their logo, I'm sorry you guys can't see this, but the county logo, if you're not familiar with it, has the mission, similar to this, but behind it they just threw up the pinnacles and then this kind of outline of San Diego with the star that says Hollister on it. But it's the same circular thing with the date on the bottom. I like the old historic city logo. I think both for cost and as a nod towards history, I say keep it. But I totally support the San Juan Committee and this logo. And I think that's kind of, in keeping with progressiveness and so forth to go forward with new identity. But as far as the city of San Juan Bautista identity, I don't see a need to change. That's just my opinion.
I agree with Dan. I think that we differentiate the sort of the official functions. You called it the seal. This is the seal, and for sort of official purposes. But anything that's customer facing, sort of in a general purpose way, that's the branding.
Yeah.
This is our branding message. This is our seal.
Yeah.
And so I would suggest that we use this, that we update this, digitize this, let her play with it a little bit, give them a little bit of latitude to clean it up and dress it up. So for instance, the vehicles, I think we should put that on the vehicles. So, but that would be my 2 cents.
We can also bring the vehicles and the branding on vehicles back later, so we don't need to muddy up this discussion with that, but, yeah.
Any thoughts?
I like this blue one. Just take the old logo and clean it up.
Yeah.
So you,
Okay. Do we,
I don't want to spend a lot of time or money on the city logo.
okay.
so you got
Are you?
What? I prefer the old black and white. This one looks washed.
Probably need both of them.
This one looks washed out to me. I don't like the color of the mission.
Well,
It
that's
just
why
kind
I
of looks.
suggested letting her sort of play with it,
Yeah.
particularly since it's a digital image.
I thought it was the same thing, it just.
It is. It's the same image, just
Right.
there's a black and white version and a color version, which we
Right.
would probably need both of. Something there?
I just make a suggestion in connection with the idea of a city logo or a city seal, not referring to the seal that is used
Correct.
to emboss on the various documents. You might want to consider having a policy on the use of that logo and that seal, because a lot of times, especially with the availability of electronic media, you'll find it turning up in different contexts in different places.
Sure.
And it protects the city a little bit if the city council has adopted a policy. So we could look at that and bring something back.
Well, that's true. That's true. That's a good point. So, and in the interest of full disclosure, so Kathy Shippard, not long after she came up with this design, came to my office, and I don't know, Mr. City Attorney, but I'm a California lawyer too, and she asked me what would be involved with trademarking this, and I said, well, we could do that. And we started looking into it, and as far as we got, and the whole thing stopped, was the question of who owns this.
Yes.
Sounds like a simple question, right? No, this image, that logo, who owns that? Does the city of San Juan Bautista own that? Does this thing called the San Juan Committee own it? And if so, who are the San Juan Committee members? It was a complicated question, and the whole thing shut down because they couldn't answer that question. So we haven't moved the ball forward.
It is a complicated question.
Yeah, don't you love
It is. Whereas this thing, there's no question that the city of San Juan Bautista owns this. And it is the seal. And if you look at getting back to one of the points the mayor made a minute ago, if you look at the Great Seal of the state of California, that lady sitting up there with the sword, and she has a helmet on, and there's a bear and this other stuff, that's the seal of the state of California. But that's not how the state of California Chamber of Commerce markets itself for tourism or anything else. There's a whole bunch of other branding and things that go, that's kind of what you're getting back to, right? So,
comfortable with the direction?
I didn't hear, so I just was talking about the policy stuff.
I think that the consensus is that we do want to move forward with digitizing the two original images, perhaps giving her a little latitude to clean them up, dress them up.
Just do it.
Well, I mean, believe me, you want her to be able to play with it just a little bit, but to stay very true to the images as they are.
And did you want her to stick with a similar color scheme, or have you seen the whole color palette they developed with that? And
no,
you know, free to use that color palette, but this design? I don't know.
I would give her
So just
little
a color
latitude.
and a black and white.
Yeah, I think that's because you need that for different media.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. And not to exceed number?
$300?
$300?
I said approximately. I was giving you a number to go on.
I think you guys have the discretion.
I'll go to 3:30.
That's all well within Roger's discretion, I think.
Okay.
I mean, there's no reason for us to be
Okay.
micromanaging that, for those kind of dollars. Okay, moving on. Consider a representative to the Monterey Bay Community Power Authority. Ooh, this will be fun, huh, John?
No, I hope so.
Okay, so we have, we have signed on with the Monterey Bay Community Power. We share a board seat with the city of Hollister. So I guess the intent is for us to rotate with them. And the suggestion from the organizing group was that we hand that off every 2 years. That was their suggestion, correct?
Correct.
Alternate?
Alternate. So we would alternate with a representative from the city of Hollister.
And I think the consensus of the whole group was that the minimum term would be a minimum of 2 years, because the first year you're just getting acclimated to what's going on.
Right.
So that they didn't want a rotation of one-year members where they have to re-educate them and stuff. So they felt a 2-year term was appropriate. And now we're group 11 of the shares of the thing, and the 2 cities of San Benito County have to share that seat.
Right.
That's how you alternate it.
So the city of Hollister has designated their council member Ray Friend. They put him forward. We need to discuss how we want to negotiate with them for if we're going to appoint the first board member, if they're going to appoint the first board member, and then amongst ourselves who we are going to appoint as our representative to the board.
And you should solicit a board member and an alternate to go forward.
Okay.
Did you reference this, Mr. Mayor? Who goes first? Hollister or us?
We have not. There's that is a yeah, exactly.
So what,
I know, John.
what kind of prompted this a little bit is my wife attended the first, what do you call it, the board meeting of the CSA, and let's just say representation from San Benito County was kind of lacking. I'll just put it that way.
Where was the meeting, Santa Cruz?
Well, they were there.
Seaside.
They were there. They just,
Seaside?
they were there, but they were just not very,
But it was in Seaside?
yeah, they
They
were
have the most votes, right?
just
Monterey
not,
County?
Was it
Santa Cruz.
It was the Marina Library.
yes, it was a Marina
Okay,
Library.
Monterey does.
It wasn't,
Yes, Salinas and all, yeah.
Councilman DeVries, it wasn't a matter of attendance, it was a matter of being awake and things like
No,
that.
I was just asking about venue.
okay.
Venue for the first meeting is always interesting because venue typically falls within the jurisdiction that has the most juice in the thing, and then Councilmember West told me it was in fact in Monterey County, and that was my understanding, is that Monterey County, based on the structure, had the most votes and therefore the most moxie.
They do, at the present time, yeah. Okay. But they probably, never.
I think, if I can make a comment, I think the driving force was Santa Cruz County.
Yes.
For sure, to set it up.
Yeah.
But who's going to drive the bus? Santa Cruz built the bus, but who's going to drive it now? That's the question, right?
I agree, but they were the driving force, and they did the most of the legwork from the executive to make it happen.
And put up,
Absolutely.
and they put up the most money.
For sure.
Far more than Monterey County.
Yes.
Right.
So Monterey County has Ms. Parker, Jane Parker, as their representative, and another person I don't know, and they're kind of already on opposite sides, so they might cancel each other out. And then there's so many cities down in Monterey, I lose track of who's who.
That's group 9, I think, King City,
Yeah.
Gonzales, Greenfield.
I don't think King City signed on.
Yeah, I thought they did.
Did they? Okay.
And
Well, if they did, they were the last.
So we need to decide who we want to put forward. I know that Councilmember Freeman is keenly interested.
Yes.
And I
You did?
wholeheartedly support that.
I second that.
Yeah.
Jim and I co-second that motion.
Okay, well, before we get to that, we'll open it up. So do we want to have take this in two pieces? Should we discuss, let's talk about the appointment of our representative, and then we'll have a second question. We'll discuss how we want to.
Don't forget the alternate.
And an alternate,
Yeah.
and then moving forward with the
Negotiations between the two
negotiations with the
cities.
City of Hollister. Is that amenable to everybody? Okay. So do we have any public comment on selection of an appointment to the or to this board position? Okay. I see no public comment. Do we have any more comment from the council? Questions, discussion?
It would seem to me that the first thing you have to decide is who's going to get the first 2 years.
Well,
Because, let's say you appointed me, I'm not going to be here
Yeah.
in 2 years.
well, it doesn't have to be a council member,
Well,
but yeah, no, I understand. I think, so,
Well, I think John's the obvious choice anyway, and he's got a brand new fresh term, so.
yeah.
Unless there's someone else that would throw a wrench into that.
No.
I hereby make the motion, Mr. Mayor, that we appoint John Freeman to be the representative of the city of San Juan Bautista.
Second.
And the alternate would be,
Well, let's do this first.
Okay.
So, Trish?
Councilmember Bach? Councilmember Freeman?
yes.
Councilmember DeFreeze?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously.
I was going to vote against it. I didn't want you to be unanimous.
Okay, and so then we should have an alternate appointee. I would suggest, Dan, that you be the...
Yes.
I would accept that. I would accept that nomination. Yeah, for sure.
I would make the motion that we appoint Dan DeVries as the alternate to the deal.
Wait, did you say director at the FBI?
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause I don't know if I'm qualified for that job.
It's all right. You'll be fired real quick.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Trish?
Yes. Councilmember Bach?
yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeVries?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Martirana?
Aye.
All members of the council being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Okay, so now on to the question of our arm wrestling or whatever we're going to do with the City of Hollister.
That's what our ambassador is going to handle that, right?
Well, I've actually spoken to both Roy Friend and
have you?
Mayor Velasquez.
Oh, good for you. I hadn't done that yet.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's good or not. What I discussed with Mayor Velasquez was perhaps John and myself meeting with he and Councilmember Friend, and amongst the four of us trying to come to a consensus on how that should be, how we should, who should be put forward as the first, and that whichever representative is not the board member, that person would be the alternate that would hopefully also attend the meetings.
Let me ask a more philosophical question. Does anyone on this council, specifically Councilmember Freeman or you, Mr. Mayor, do you have a burning desire to be first, to serve the first 2 years? In other words, couldn't a pretty good argument be made, let's just let Hollister get out in front and see how they do?
Sure, I was just, like I said, my wife said that San Bernardino County just wasn't all that well represented. So I would think we have a lot to offer the thing in terms of not necessarily San Juan Bautista, but San Bernardino County of land for possible developments for solar plants and alternative energies, and to let it go to waste, I think is, it's a terrible thing to waste.
I think what you're saying is that you could do a better job, and I don't disagree with that. I think you could infinitely do a better job, but I guess in my mind, the question is, what's the downside to Hollister going first? What do you think?
I'm concerned because they both, Mayor Velasquez and Councilmember Friend, were pretty vocal in their opposition to the whole project.
Oh, even getting into it?
Yes.
And so
They might undermine it.
I think that we've been very supportive of the idea from the outset, and I would not like to see it be
Undermined
or get mired in that sort of discussion. And see how we focus on the positive and moving forward. And I think John would be a better person for in that respect.
Especially with those facts, I didn't know that.
So
I don't know if I'd agree with that. I went to the meeting, I was there with Councilmember Friend. He had a lot of questions. He was with PG&E forever and ever. So he has an awful lot of questions about that and an awful lot of ways of looking at it that I had never thought of. I don't know. I think he was initially skeptical, but I don't think that's the same as being negative. And I think that my only thought with Councilmember Friend is that he has an awful lot of experience about how that whole thing works. So I would not have a problem if they went first. I think you qualified too, or you be there with him, but I think that Mr. Friend...
You want my observation to the thing is, because I've attended all of the meetings and everything, the first meetings in the 6 months or that are there, it's going to be a lot of jockeying and rules and regulations and how the votes, and there's going to be a lot of logistical organizations. Productivity is not going to really be there the first 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
Then after that, it'll start to settle down, and then you'll get into the meat of the stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Is the council then comfortable with the suggestion that John and I meet with Councilmember Friend and Mayor Velasquez?
Yeah.
Hammer this out? Yes. Okay. Do we have any public comment on this?
Building public?
Yeah.
I believe it's Jaime Del Cruz.
It's Jaime Del Cruz, yes.
Just a quick question. Who's on the air resources now? Because it's sounding like they are the same makeup as this group is going to be.
No, they're not. No, not at all.
Okay, because I thought maybe because Hollister goes for 2 years and then San Juan goes for 2 years to the air resources, and that sounds like that's what you're discussing, but I guess not.
No.
Yeah, we don't have.
It's a joint power. It's going to be a joint powers agreement.
Yeah.
And
So it's not the same makeup as the air resources.
and it's interesting is once it's formed, and all the participant cities, everybody is in it, and then each resident has to, if they don't want to, have to opt out. If they don't opt out, they will be in it.
Yeah.
So but to mention, Jim, the second larger user of industrial water treatment chemicals is power plants. And I lived my first 10 years out in Coalinga, several power plants. God, it's a horrible place. But I didn't live there. I went out once a week.
No, I did not. I think that you'd be an excellent representative, and I would not at all be disappointed if you were the one. I just think that Mr. Friend Ray has a lot of experience, and it's kind of like a game that he's played before, and that was the only concern.
I've been inside as many generating plants as he has.
Oh, okay. Well, then I got no dog in this ring.
Did you have anything else?
Yeah, the only reason I mention it is I thought if Hollister was on air resources right now, then you guys might want to use that in your discussions with them about why you might want to be on this one, even if they're not really the same
Thank you,
maintenance.
Jolene, that's a great
It's-
idea.
That is a good idea.
Yes.
It's still the same idea
Got it.
of, AMBAG has every city representative.
Right.
Air Resources does not, and this doesn't sound like it will
So
either.
we would rotate,
Yeah,
right?
good idea. You ought to think about being clerk.
Okay. Any other public comment on that item? Seeing none, I will.
Yeah.
Mayor, I had a speed record from Rachel Pouncey for the previous one that I neglected on the logo.
Which one? Okay, well,
Oh.
Never mind.
are you,
Sorry.
call me tomorrow.
Call, just shout.
No, she's much too polite for that.
Oh,
Okay, all right, so I think we have consensus from the council.
Yeah.
Any other questions or further questions or comments, discussion? No? Okay. In that case, we'll move on to discussion items. The first item is the statewide community infrastructure program, or SKIP.
I was going to give a brief presentation on this, but I'm not an official in this. This program came up, I'll just give you an overview of why this is even on here. This came up as an interesting financing option regarding impact fees for developments of multiple sizes. And so I decided to just do a little research on it. I've talked to the people at the SKIP program and the California Statewide Communities Development Authority and gotten lots of materials on it from them. But I felt like this is something that the Salem Batista City Council really should discuss themselves. If you've been reading Benito Link, the Hollister City Council is actually considering something like this as well right now, and it was really interesting reading their discussion on it. And I invited one of the representatives from RBC Capital, who I believe are some of the lenders with this program, to be here tonight, and he actually volunteered to give a little overview. So I will present Patrick Bertram from RBC Capital and let him take it away.
Sure, thank you. And good evening, everybody. So just again, to introduce myself, my name is Patrick Bertram. I'm an analyst at RBC Capital Markets, which is a member of the financing team for the statewide community infrastructure program, or SKIP. SKIP is a pooled bond financing program that's run by the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, CSCDA. CSCDA is a joint powers authority founded and sponsored by the League of California Cities and the California State Association of Communities. They provide a variety of bond financing programs to participating members. One thing to note is that every county in the state of California is a member of CSCDA, and in total there are 532 participating counties, cities, and local agencies. San Juan Batista is not a member at this time. You would need to join CSCDA in order to use the SKIP financing program. But one thing to note is there's no cost to join, and if this is something that you would be interested in pursuing, CSCDA can send you the appropriate resolution. So as I mentioned, CSCDA provides a variety of bond financing programs. SKIP specifically was created to finance public improvements and impact fees for private developments. Since its inception in 2003, the program has issued over $400 million worth of bonds, which have financed improvements and fees for 170 projects across California. These include projects for commercial use, light industrial, and then residential, both single and multifamily. And actually, so the reason I'm here today is that we received an application for a project in San Juan Batista from Meritage Homes. It's called Rancho Vista. It is a single-family residential project, 86 units. It's located off the San Juan Highway, and they would like to finance about $1.3 million of both improvements and fees through the program. So the way they would go about doing this is, as I mentioned, it's a pooled program, but it's a pooled assessment program. So these would be 1913, 1915 assessment bonds, as opposed to Melrose bonds. They're secured by property owner assessments on the land within the district. We issue these as a fixed lien bond, could be 30 years. And another item to note is there's no cross-collateralization between the projects in the pool. So each project financed is only obligated to pay for their debt service. There's a shortfall in another project that doesn't affect that individual real estate project.
So what you're telling us is, excuse me for interrupting, but if Meritage somehow doesn't follow through or whatever, that the property will be assessed this bond and not the city, right?
Yes, that was actually the next point I was going to get to. So this is exclusively an assessment on the property. There's no city obligation for the debt. And, part of the reason that it's advantageous is for smaller real estate projects like Rancho Vista that may not be large enough to merit the formation of a standalone district. This provides an opportunity for the real estate developer to get access to tax-exempt financing that they might be otherwise precluded from receiving. Another item to note is that this will show up as an assessment from CSCDA as opposed to a city tax on the property owner's tax bill. In addition, so when Meritage eventually sells these homes, they're going to have to fully disclose the assessment and the annual tax to home buyers. So they'll be aware that this is part of the overall purchase price of the house. So potential buyers are fully aware.
So just to explain, because I'm really not in tune with this, person goes and buys a home out there. He receives a separate tax bill from your organization, or is it with the county tax bill, or how does it work?
This would go on the county tax roll, so CSCDA is in charge of putting the assessment on the tax roll, as well as a variety of other kind of administrative responsibilities associated with establishing the district, as well as administering it for the rest of its life. And that's kind of one of the key benefits that I was going to talk about to the city, is that this relieves you of the administrative responsibilities and the staff time that's associated with forming the district and then administering it thereafter. And so effectively, if you were interested in joining and were to opt to sign the resolution of intention that's required to join, that gives CSCDA the ability to form a district and levy taxes within your jurisdiction, and then all responsibilities for the bonds thereafter they would take care of. So, that our financing team would take care of. So, effectively, that means forming the district and issuing bonds, but it also means making sure the tax gets on the roll, providing ongoing continuing disclosure services related to the bonds, rebate and arbitrage services, administering any lot splits within the district in the future, and then finally, if there were an overly delinquent parcel, CSCDA will foreclose on it, as opposed to the city having that responsibility. Again, as I mentioned, this would show up as a CSCDA assessment as opposed to a city tax. And so, the city responsibilities for participating in the program are fairly limited. Moving forward afterwards, it would essentially be approving projects to participate in the program, and then making sure that the city spent the funds as they stated they were going to. So, whatever was financed, that was actually appropriately what the funds were applied to. And any issues related to these bonds issued in the future, or to come up in the future, will be handled by the SKIP financing team. So, the way the program is set up is that if we were to get an application for a project in San Juan Bautista in the future, we would bring it to a designated city representative who would have to authorize their participation in the program. But it wouldn't require like a city council approval for individual projects. And I guess the final point that I kind of want to touch on one more time is just that this assessment would be required to be disclosed in sales disclosure documents to any potential home buyers. And so, for example, the project I mentioned earlier, Rancho Vista, in order to fund their improvements and fees, we would look at bonding $1.6 million in debt that would be issued as part of this revenue bond pool. And that foots to about $18,500 of debt on the units for each lot. Alternatively, that could be $1,250 of an annual assessment or tax on the house paid over 30 years. The debt can be prepaid at any time, but that information will be disclosed to potential buyers. So I guess, in conclusion, SKIP is a program that's managed by CSCDA to form assessment districts to finance public improvements and impact fees. There is no obligation for the city to pay the debt. There's no liability to the city. It's non-recourse debt tied to the piece of land. It does allow smaller real estate projects like the Rancho Vista example here to finance or gain capital from tax-exempt financing. The lien is disclosed to the homeowners. They're aware of the fact that it's part of their purchase price for a house. And I guess, the final thing I would mention is that SKIP currently has 75 members across the state of California. We have more members that are contemplating joining or in the process of joining, and I think Hollister was the example that you mentioned that I was going to mention as well. So thank you for noting that, but I just wanted to provide an overview of the program.
So one more question. What if we join, then other developments or other commercial developments, like if someone wants to open up a small shopping center or a big restaurant, they could also access your, I guess it's financing?
That's correct. And so they would submit an application, and as I mentioned, a designated city representative would have to authorize their participation. But yes, this provides financing for commercial projects. Shopping center is a good example. Light industrial is possible. Real estate, though, in kind of the last few months or years, has really been the predominant participant in the program.
You mean R1 or residential? I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. In the case of San Juan Bautista, for example, we issue bonds on an annual basis, twice a year for. We recently just did an issue for 7 projects that were all residential in Brentwood, Sacramento, South Sacramento. There's a variety of participants. West Sacramento, sorry.
This pays the impact fees instead of the developer.
Yeah, it provides financing, so the fees can either be pre-funded, where the funds would be put in kind of a SKIP account with the trustee or the city.
But the developer doesn't have to come up out of his pocket with the impact fees.
That's correct. So he would be reimbursed, or the fees would be pre-funded.
Why would the city do that?
Well, it provides another opportunity for developers to gain access to tax-exempt financing and makes the city.
So this would, let me finish. So this would take the financial burden off shaky developers.
Well, there's a lot of reputable developers that use the program.
Well, they want to take it off the developers who don't want to put the money up.
So before he pounds, can I ask him to explain 2 more things that I don't think you covered very well? I think you covered the benefits to developers really well, and part of the reason I wanted to bring you here was to sort of expand upon the benefits to homeowners and the benefits to the city, because I think that's what these guys are going to be really concerned with, because a lot of the materials really did focus on the developers. So what are the benefits to the homeowner of doing this? I know one of the things I read was that said that sometimes that results in a lower house cost, which makes the mortgages easier to get, and I know for the city it mentioned that gives you more cash up front, so you don't have to wait, like you have a big project not related to the project, the housing project that you want to put it towards, that's sometimes a benefit as well.
So it takes the impact fees out of the purchase price that the guy signs up for another way.
Well, I just wanted him to explain this a little bit more.
He's divided it.
So in certain instances, this can be less expensive than rolling in the cost of the impact fees or the improvements into the cost of the housing, because then a developer is paying for it up front, and that's going to be directly reflected in the housing price. So this is just an alternative way for them to essentially get that capital without having to charge homeowners more money. As far as it impacting homeowners, the assessments are tax exempt, as I had mentioned. So effectively, this money that would prospectively be coming out of your mortgage, which is taxable, is now being financed through a tax exempt program at a really competitive rate. So it provides a way for developers to access capital and decrease their home prices, and for homeowners to prospectively pay for the difference in a different, or I guess, alternative fashion.
The alternative fashion being a write-off.
Yeah, they wouldn't get a write-off.
I think that's what he just said.
I guess what I'm getting is the homeowner would either be paying for this upfront in the increased cost of their house, or this is a different way for them to pay back the cost of, I guess the impact fee that would otherwise fall upon.
With the reduction in the purchase price of the home?
The impact fee.
Yeah, so
No, I get that, but a reduction in the, so developer doesn't pay as much in, the developer doesn't pay as much money in impact fees because now he's taking advantage of a program like this and he's theoretically going to pass that savings along to home purchasers.
I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, if you were
Let me just finish. So the developer is going to finish passing, or is going to pass along the savings to purchaser that he has benefited from and taken advantage of this program, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then, so then homeowner pays less than they would have paid if the developer doesn't participate in this program. But after that purchase goes through, there's no ongoing savings to the homeowner. So anything that's homeowner-based happens at the time of purchase, correct?
Well, I guess the ongoing basis would be if you were to take out a mortgage to purchase a house, obviously you're going to be paying that back over.
No, yeah, okay, aside from financing. But so builder, developer, in this instance, Rancho Vista, Meritage Homes has to pay the city of San Juan Bautista, what'd you say, 1.6? Is that what your office calculated in impact fees?
It'd be 1.3 for impact fees and improvements, yes.
Okay, so now instead of developer coming out of pocket with that money, they're going to finance it through your program.
Right.
And they're hopefully going to pass that savings along to the purchasers of these homes. But then after that sales transaction takes place, for the average homeowner, they're not going to realize any kind of savings going forward.
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
Your pocket pays for mortgage, your pocket pays for impact fees.
Well, it's been my experience that...
This is just to benefit the developer.
Yeah, my experience, developers price their homes on the market. You know, yes, there are costs involved, and maybe it costs $300,000 to put up a house, including impact fees. But they're not going to sell for $400 if they can get $600, and they're not going to sell for $600 if they can get $800. If the market says $800, it doesn't matter. They're going to get they're going to market it for $800. You know, and so all we're doing is making their life a little easier.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes why?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there some statistical evidence of the developers charging less?
Yeah, that's what I would like. You know, if
passing it along.
Right.
Yeah.
The savings.
Because I think they just go by market rate.
It's incredibly naive to think that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if they may not otherwise build the houses based on where the market is, this is an opportunity to provide housing to people who respectively buy it.
86 homes, by the way, is the biggest development this community's ever seen. And,
To us, it's big time.
And the SKIP program, they're applying for it years after they've gotten the approvals. So it seems, I don't know.
It just seems like a tough sell. In your initial presentation, you said that one of the benefits to the city is that the city doesn't have to collect these fees and this and that, but I don't really see the difficulty or the hindrance or the benefit to that part of the program. In other words, these guys have to write checks for these impact fees to make payable to the city of San Juan Bautista in order to pull a building permit, correct, Roger? So if they finance it through your office, great, but what's the benefit to the city of San Juan Bautista and us saying yes to what you're pitching right now? What's in it for us?
I guess as opposed to issuing assessment bonds yourself as the city, if that was something that you were looking at pursuing.
Well, and if we had an approved application, the way I read it was that, say, the 1.3 million, if we had something that we could use that for on day one after they issue it, we could actually pull all 1.3 million out and use it right then, not wait for all of it to come in. So that's how I read one of the perks to a city. If you had something you really needed $1.3 million for, boom, you could get it right up front and not wait. Yeah.
Right, so that's correct. If you were to pre-fund the fees that are so the developer is going to pay, that money goes into an account that you can access immediately after the bond issue, and then you would just credit the developer as the permits are pulled.
So to follow up on your point, man, I I don't think anybody on this council is dreaming of building a brand-new police station or fire station with that money. So, we might be pocketing it, saving it for a rainy day, and maybe a few nice little projects here and there, but, not a big Taj Mahal type thing. So, I guess what I'm getting at is, it's not, I don't think how long does it take for us to get the impact fees normally without this thing? A year, 2 years?
It depends on the phasing of the project, but.
Okay.
This is a benefit to a city that's trying to attract new development at a lower threshold for developers.
We don't have those concerns here.
No.
Do you happen to know the history of the program and whether, because I know you said 2003, is it something that spun out of that financial crash and maybe was utilized more during like the last economic crisis in 2008?
Yeah, I guess it was originally designed to
If we want to attract
ease the
low-cost
administrative
developers.
burden for cities on opening up these districts themselves, provide financing to smaller real estate development projects that may not
But I'm not that smart, so.
require a standalone district, or to allow for new developments where potentially there is raise within markets, and it did hinge on some kind of expansion of the traditional developer capital stack.
Okay. I think it's important to remember too that we're not pushing this idea, and he's not here to sell it either. So I just simply asked him here because I knew Hollister had explored this, and I knew someone had applied within our city. So I thought it'd be a great chance for you guys and us to explore it.
It sounds like a great idea if there was a mechanism to force the developer to pass the savings on. But to my mind, there isn't one that's legal that would pass any type of constitutional muster. So, I end up with the same question as the rest of you. Why?
Tony, any questions? Well, based on my experience of building a couple of subdivisions, I wish this had been around a few years ago. Because I had to come out of pocket for impact fees, sewer and water, electrical lines, all that buried in the ground, plus the pavement on top of it. Your point about the market, if the market is for, let's say, $300,000 homes, that's what it's going to be. Now, if he's got $50,000 in impact fees, which, by the way, the city has gotten up front for all of them. They're not, okay, I'm building 10 houses at a time, so I put up $500,000 impact fees, all right? And then I come in a year later and build another 10 homes, all right? You get your next $500,000. This way, if you do this on this subdivision out here, all right, we get all the money up front. I couldn't care less how long it takes them to build those houses. We've got our money. And as far as, I would think that to be competitive, because you have to explain to the buyer exactly what they're getting into. You got a Melrose assessment district, you got a, whatever you call that out of Creek Bridge, right? That has to be explained to the buyer. That this is gonna, you're buying this house for $50,000 under, because I financed it, but you're gonna pay this $50,000 back over a 30-year period. Is that correct? They're 30-year bonds?
Yeah, they finance their impact fees.
So, I guess, so one option for potential savings.
Yeah, it's right. There's two things to it. It makes it easier on the developer, all right? But it also makes it that we know we're gonna, you could take that subdivision out there and the guy builds 10 homes and walks away, all right? Then, and this has happened to us on the 3rd Street project, what we call it, whatever you call it.
D'Ambrosio.
D'Ambrosio, all right? How many builders have been in there?
About 5.
This way, the guy's obligated he has to make those, if he stretches that thing out over 5 years, he's gotta make those payments on that bond. You know, he's not, you know, it's just like making your payments on your interest payments on your construction, same thing. To me, it's a benefit. Hopefully, the builder, developer, you know, at least it very clearly explains to the buyers what's going on.
Well, Tony, the only thing I can say is I bought about 6 homes, and they have carefully explained everything to me, and I never understood a goddamn word they were saying.
Okay. You can go down to the title company and ask Tony Rovella, all right? She could not believe that I sat there and read every line of every
I wish I'd have bought a house from
page
you.
of that contract, you know, and she said, most people don't do this.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you know, I have to know what I'm getting into. And so that's...
And this is why I defer to you. You're much wiser than I just signed the name, and then if come on later, I gotta pay this over here. Then I'm gonna go complain to the city.
Do we have any more questions for this gentleman? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any public comment, questions?
No, I don't have.
Okay.
Newspaper card.
So we're going to...
Well, there is one thing.
What's that?
You can sign up for this. I mean, that doesn't, there's no obligation to it on the city.
Right.
All right? So whatever happens is between the developer, builder, and/or the buyer. And, yeah. So that, I mean, you could have this in place, and I'm trying to think, I don't know if they'd fool around with it, but let's say that development up on end of San Antonio Street, 5 homes, you know, I don't know if they do that small of a deal, you know, but you have it in place in case.
Okay. We're going to move on.
Can we do a bathroom break?
Yeah, absolutely. We stand in recess for 5 to 10 minutes until I call you back.
It's the over 50 break, you ain't ready for it.
For this happy other thing, I'd love to be able to draw. Is there a draw here? Is there a...
I think that's what that is, actually. Not a whiteboard?
Yeah.
But it's also
Inside.
Either one.
Yeah. I haven't actually seen that. Never ever told me there's one under there, but...
Let me get
Was this in the 80s or?
I also had
As long as you can turn yourself back on.
Is there any legal thing that we should understand about this that we didn't see?
No, I think it's,
that we didn't ask.
all the legal part is pretty much taken away from the city, is the administrative part. By the Warriors ahead by 36, with 6 minutes in the fourth. 36 points, 120 to 86.
That's because they're dirty players.
There you go.
Can you believe that?
Trey Mundry.
Oh, hi, George. How are you? I'll see you, yeah. I'm doing.
I don't know why this is not working.
You've been coming very often.
Everybody wants to hear from Tom.
You guys some new mics over here. And some video equipment up here.
She'd be here tonight if she had a need.
Eventually.
We keep
talking about it.
So I guess it's kind of shopping.
I'm ready with you guys.
It's always, can be tough.
All it takes is money. That's our.
Well, speaking of that, I talked to a person who would be willing to install the TVs, you know, the monitors,
The point that you brought up.
you know, and he added it up. And
Yeah.
2 TVs here and one over there, that would be for us.
The city owns it.
He was in charge. And associated cabling and splitting equipment, which is really critical. Okay, or not critical, but it adds another $500. He came up with about $6,000, a little under $6,000. And so, and then Roger said that CNAP was going to put everything in a corner or something, and so, he could come and do this in a day or two. It wouldn't take too long. Buy TVs or Best Buy or Foxconn, drag them down here, hang them up.
Basically, cameras, you want to put in robotic cameras. So I want them right where the robotic cameras are.
So you're going to put in the radio system? I love it. Okay. So how many cameras? One there, shooting outward, and two on the wall over there shooting this way? Yep, one on the wall here, one on the wall. Okay, so.
I had the whole experience.
Then I can sit back there instead of sitting there.
Sure. A lot better, yeah. I'm kind of hip to this. It's not hard to say. I'm trying to get the city to step up.
Now who's on whoever wants to can apply, and then it'll come to us.
Roger wasn't the guy that
Now, either one of these representatives, like I said, if you want to sell the commission to you guys, then it'll come to you, and I asked if we did regarding discrimination between projects, and mentioned that we have one. If you want, like, you guys apply, no matter what they. No, not.
There's all kinds
Turn it over to me.
We're going to use,
I think we certainly got those.
There's these new gizmos, I call them gizmos. Then you plug in Cat 6 or 5E or whatever it is. Because it kind of on the road with water.
I think you can talk with this.
Does it have 30 feet? Why not get good signal? Well, this is so you can have, you can run the cable down there back there 3 times, or we can solicit people to write a comment.
That's why I was trying to get it.
He would have a splitter that was to feed all along.
My father always wanted one of those cars.
The same one's not really.
He came down the line and we went over
The hard problem is that
they were stalled.
So we're going to get one thing though, I mean, the microphones can be an issue though.
There's like this.
Because I'm sitting there writing it all the time.
We didn't focus on that. And his quote was, there's no AV system upgrade. I think we need bigger speakers and newer speakers and living outdoor.
Well, I know from that perspective, we've been kind of pushing for getting the cameras. Sure. My personal perspective, audio is half the experience, and that's where you guys are sure to head off. I can't stand it because I can't hear one person, the next person's too loud.
Right.
So that would be just from my point of view personally.
Throw together a little ways to do it.
But it happened to be the first.
Come and do it.
Do you guys need real microphones with the goosenecks on or something that you guys can turn on and off? I figured you guys had something.
This is not that much.
Does he still have the?
Scope. And the more I want to from cable franchise, that's the view. Well, maybe in this room. If you can find that outside, you know, you can go on the back.
You've seen the.
Voila, you guys got funding you need in here.
No, I haven't, and I don't know if
going.
I rarely drove
But I had
it
a 7 o'clock flight out of San Jose.
I drive it on the weekends.
They fly to Indianapolis? Fly to Chicago, drive to New York.
What?
Fly to Chicago.
They are, yeah.
Driving to Indianapolis, okay.
Yeah, somebody said, "Stop." You know, it's like that guy that was
good to see you.
United Flight. He was going. I would have driven that distance. I wouldn't have gotten on an airplane for that.
Yeah, that was pretty ridiculous.
Well, yeah, that was.
You hadn't been here since Jim and,
No. First George was doing it. George Pastor.
Yeah.
And then George turned it over to Deb.
right. Yeah, I think you probably got tapped more often than George.
When George was here, yeah.
Okay.
George is down, he just works about 2 days a week now.
Are you good to go there? Tony's coming.
The only request that Rob is to...
Seals in there.
Huh?
That ain't Seals.
Yeah, it is.
Everything it's not.
I think we just slowed it down. I thought.
No, it's just from calling. I live 3 doors down. Across from third base.
But it turned out not was the number that came, so that was the last time.
The only thing I would request is to...
Well, maybe they also go through all of the contract counts, that doesn't qualify.
It is scary.
And schools is a good chunk, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so schools doesn't count, so that's probably, yeah.
Well,
So you want to talk about Abbey Park Little League first?
Yeah.
And then the dog park.
Right. Because I think it'll help with the...
You got one.
Yeah. Well, there must have been some things that didn't qualify.
Okay, are we back? We've got everybody? Yeah. Call the meeting to order. We are back in session. And we're going to flip the order here slightly and take discussion item C, use of Abbey Park by the Hollister Little League. Councilmember DeVries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I asked for the agenda change, just the switching of these two items in order, is to just take a look at the Hollister Little League City of San Juan Bautista contract. And just by way of background, it's my understanding that, just in talking with some folks, people that were involved with Little League in San Juan Bautista for a long time, that there is no more San Juan Aromas Little League. It's very sad. They lost their charter. They didn't lose it, they gave it up. It was a hard decision for them. I was talking to the president, board members, and so forth. And I don't know anything about the administration of Little League, but apparently it would take like an act of Congress to get a charter back in San Juan Bautista. Maybe that happens in the future, and that's something for us to keep in the back of our minds with the rest of what I'm about to propose. But let's just say in the near future that the Abbey Park, which is the City of San Juan Bautista asset, is not going to be used for Aromas San Juan Bautista Little League anytime soon. Instead, the city has gotten into a contractual arrangement with Hollister Little League for the use of that field, which is great. It's awesome to see it being used and kids enjoying it. And in fact, if you're a parent in San Juan Bautista in 2017 and you want your child to play in Little League, you sign them up with Hollister Little League. And one of the places that they will play, hopefully, will be in San Juan, but there's going to be a lot of driving to Hollister, for practices and games and all that stuff, and that's kind of the bummer side of it. The other thing is, living here as long as I have, it's an interesting piece of history is that park was donated by the Abbey family many years ago, who ran a mercantile on 3rd Street in appreciation for the money that they made in San Juan Bautista. I've got the deed in my office, and the deed actually says, to the City of San Juan Bautista, so long as that piece of property shall always be used for a baseball field. In the law, we call that a reversion. So that means that it was donated to the city, but it can never be used for anything other than baseball. If the city wanted to put condos on it, then the family would step in, and there's still some family members alive. They're in Oregon, they'd say, it comes back to the city. So it shall always be used for a Little League field primarily.
Okay, so that's kind of the backdrop. I thought I would, at first, like I said, take a look at the contract. The contract itself doesn't necessarily spell out what the city is obligated to provide to Hollister City, or I'm sorry, Hollister Little League, to fulfill the terms of the contract, except for what I will call the big field. The big field, I've drawn it on the whiteboard there. It's the big baseball diamond that we all know of, right? It's first, second, third, bleachers,
It's got lights.
scores, but yeah, all that stuff. But if I can just switch right now, and Matt, can I just use that microphone right there? And okay, is that okay with you?
Yeah, of course.
When I say Phil Donahue, I'm dating myself.
Yes, you are.
Back in my day, it was Phil Donahue. Can you hear me okay? Okay, so here's the big field, and years ago there was never this permanent outfield fence. That was always a temporary thing that they would put up seasonally. By the way, just so you know, I live right here, and I have for 20 years, so I'm intimately familiar with how the park runs. So the Little League people would put up this temporary outfield fence, and then they would take it down. And then one year the Little League folks decided, that's kind of ridiculous. Just build a permanent cyclone fence here. So that was great. But then there was also a perimeter cyclone fence that ran around the entire perimeter of Abbey Park, which didn't make a whole lot of sense, because now people couldn't access this corner at all for anything because it was hard to get to. You had to jump over a fence, and there was another fence here. So back in those days, I think the city manager was Larry Kane or somebody, but we decided to take out this secondary perimeter fence and open this all up. So it's all grassy, and by the way, my office is also right over here, so I get to see people enjoying this corner during the day for picnics, and it's really pleasant. Here's the point. This was, early mid-90s. I was coaching Little League, and in those days I was coaching, including T-ball, which is like 4 or 5-year-olds. And these little 4 and 5-year-olds are so cute, right? But you get them on this big field, and it was like the Sahara Desert. They didn't know to run towards first versus running toward. They would just start running around because it was so big. So I thought, what would be neat is if we could shrink this whole thing down by 2/3 and make a T-ball field that was 1/3 the size of a regulation field. And we did that. And we built it in this corner. Right here. And I got Earthbound Farm to pay for the fencing, and they did, and they put it in. And then we put a backstop and, first, second, and third. And for these little 4 and 5-year-olds, it was perfect. Because now they could understand where first is and second and third and where outfield and the pitcher is and all that stuff. And then when they graduated to the big field, they had a sense of scale, like where to go. Well, here's the big point. My understanding, and Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, but Hollister Little League does not have T-ball, does not have any plans for T-ball. I don't think there's going to be T-ball in San Juan Bautista for a long time. But meanwhile, we have a cyclone fenced enclosed area that is being completely unused. Completely. And therefore, I think it would make a really nice little dog park. Because it's not being used. And if we made it a dog park, there would not be any expense to speak of, minimal, but it'd be certainly moderate compared to what Bob Quaid's going to talk about. And again, that's a perfect opportunity for me to say, this proposal that I'm making is not to the exclusion of a bigger, better dog park somewhere down the line. This is just something that we can do right now, and should do, in my opinion, right now. And Bob I'm going to leave it to you to talk about the bigger plan, but this is something we can do right now. And because like I said, it's already enclosed. The only thing I think we might want to do is maybe include some more benches for dog owners to sit, maybe some shade of some kind, maybe those dog poop bags or something. And then I also think that, I'm not a dog park aficionado, but I think there's like these vestibule kind of ideas where you go in through a gate and then you're like and then you go through the other gate. So maybe we have to do some modifications to the fencing that already exists. But other than that, you're done. You've got the grass, you've got the irrigation, it's in a great location in the middle of the city. I think it would be very, very well used by a lot of folks. It's 2 blocks off of, so this is 5th, 4th, 3rd. So it's 2 blocks off our main street. So even if we advertise it, San Juan Bautista has a dog park, maybe we get people coming here to stop for lunch, etc. And again, the thing I like about it is that it's very low startup costs for the city. It's an existing asset. It's not being used. I don't think Hollister Little League's going to use it for a long time. So
It's interesting that you talk about that, Dan, because I catch a lot of people running dogs in the ballpark field, where kids are going to play, and I stop them and I says, you go in that pen there if you want to walk your dog. Don't do it in the ball field where kids are going to play.
I'm glad you brought that up,
Yeah.
Roger. Thank you, because I have floated this past Hollister Little League. What do you want to call it? Officers. They love this idea, and one of the main reasons they love it the most is what Roger just indicated, that a lot of people, and I'll be honest, I mean, I live right here, so my dogs have run around in this area lots of times.
Somebody's going to mention that, Dan.
I know.
You can't read the sign that says with the
Yeah, apparently I'm not the only one, Tony.
Yeah, well, I jumped on one guy and told me, I don't got that business.
And the problem with dogs being in this field is that, in the big field, is that, you know, they'll do their business, and then a little kid steps in it when he's playing Little League and so forth, right? That's the big issue there. But even now to this day, you know, living right here, I see all kinds of dogs playing in this area all the time, and there's no way of enforcing that. Whereas if they had a dedicated dog area, I think that would help in keeping them contained. So, anyway, that's the idea. That's why I asked to be put on the agenda. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Council discussion?
Is that Pleasant Tunnel the thing for the field? For the baseball?
I don't think so, because we're still using, the park is still being used for baseball.
Okay.
It's just it's another, like we have picnic tables, would be my impression. Do we have a speaker card? Do we have a? Okay, well, not, just a moment.
What's your name again?
Oh, Winnie. Rachel, give us just a moment. Do we have any other comments, questions, discussions?
As far
from
as
the
the
council?
ballpark itself, and I presume it's the same, Hollister Little League during the ball season takes care of it inside that little cyclone fence.
Yeah, we make them take care of the infield, the bleachers, as well as the restrooms.
So they do the chalking of the lines and the...
Well, they mow the grass.
And they actually mow the grass and water it.
Right. Okay. Rachel?
I also was very sad that there is no San Juan Little League anymore, but I don't know if any of you are aware of the Junior Giants program. And that was done last year, very quietly apparently, because not very many people know about it, but Chief West Rick, I think, from Hollister, police chief, started it, and there was talk about bringing it to San Juan. And like many of you that are parents that want your kids to be involved, you're driving your kids back and forth to Hollister. And my son was doing that, and I did it for many years, and my son was doing it. And he heard about the Junior Giants in Hollister, and we would go over there and see my granddaughter play, and so then they decided, well, how come maybe we could do a chapter in San Juan? And it came to be last year, and it was amazing. The program is a free program with emphasis on education and nutrition. They get the library involved, and they are given certain themes each week to work on in nutrition and education. And it's a non-competitive program. And last year they did it here in San Juan, and people from Hollister liked it so much they want to come back. But anyway, the amazing thing was that they were able to fill 2 teams for each age group last year. So that's how many kids in San Juan were able to play baseball, non-competitive. They're taught, besides the rules and the structure of baseball, like I said, nutrition and education, reading, and they had a wonderful time. San Juan has lights, San Juan has the microphone, the kids, the parents get to hear their kids' names when they're up to bat and all of that. A lot of Hollister people liked it, and I hear that the registration for this year, coming back to San Juan, a lot of Hollister people are coming to San Juan. So the Junior Giants program will be in San Juan. I think that they've already contacted the city to use the ballpark. So it's not like the ballpark's not being used. And as far as that little T-ball thing, they use that for practice because they do have the T-ball kids. I'm not quite sure exactly what age group they start with, but they're T-ball kids because they have the machine, and then with the older ones they have the coaches pitching to them. It's a great program, and I know that the police chief in Hollister started in an effort to deter gangs. And the whole thing is that it's free. The kids get a prize every week. I mean, they get gloves, they get backpacks. It's a great program, and they really like it. And I would hate for it to not be able to work because of this other stuff. So I encourage you to, this would be a great way for the city to get in contact with the kids and the parents on this, because like I said, it's a free program. So you're getting a lot of different people coming into the program. And from what I heard at the budget meeting, there's been problems with kids up at the Baruti Park, and I think this is a great avenue for the city to get in contact and start working with kids that don't have a lot to do. This program is only a short amount of time, but it would be a great time to connect with kids that could use some support.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Delia Salinas?
Okay.
Good evening, council people. I'm all about baseball and kids. I have a son who, from T-ball all the way through Babe Ruth and all that, and he played here in San Juan Bautista, and I'd hate to see the ballpark go to a dog park. It can be used. T-ball can also be used if you guys can cooperate with the city of Hollister through their Parks and Recreation Department. You can have the kids in San Juan Bautista sign up, the little kids, for T-ball. The Junior Giants, like she said, Chief Westerick is all about it. It doesn't cost anything. It also doesn't cost anything to sign up for Babe Ruth. There's a filing fee, but it's not mandated by the rules and procedures for them. You can actually sign up and you don't have to pay for it. So parents, what they can do if they can't afford it, they can volunteer hours, whatever, whether it's cleaning up the park or working the snack bar or whatever it may be. So I really encourage you. I think I'd rather have kids out there playing than have dogs, somebody have to clean up after the dog poop. I lived across the street from a park, and it was for the kids, and there was nothing worse than they turned it into, the residents started turning it into themselves into a dog park, and my kid and all his friends being out there, and they really couldn't play comfortable because there's dog poo all over the place. Please communicate with the City of Hollister's Park and Recreation Department. I think your citizens would be very interested in knowing that if you have some kind of a facility and it's being used through them, it's not going to cost you guys anything. It's already going to be the fees. I don't know whether it's Babe Ruth is putting up for the maintenance, or I'm sorry, Hollister Little League. Are they going to be doing the maintenance for the park as it is already? Or is that something on the city? I didn't get that part. Hollister Little League will be paying for it?
Depends on what part of the park you're talking about,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay, well, I think we'd really like you guys to consider more what we can do for the kids. There's few things already for the kids to do, so.
What part of what I said do you think would impact these kids? Because they don't use that corner. They do not use that corner.
They're not using it because there's nothing there now, but I think if you can reach out to Parks and Recreation through Hollister and have kids in this area sign up, that part of it could be used up, is what I'm saying.
For T-ball age?
For T-ball age and older kids, yeah, absolutely.
And who would do T-ball age?
The T-ball is not done by the Little League, it's done by Hollister Parks and Recreation.
T-ball's done by
Hollister
Little League.
Hollister
And
Parks
it
and
used to be San Juan Romas Little League did T-ball. And Hollister Little League told me they're not going to do T-ball in San Juan Bautista. And I checked with the Junior Giants, and I checked with Hollister Little League, and they said, yeah, we're not
Did you check with Hollister Parks and Rec? Because that's
No, because we're not the
what we
city of
do.
Hollister, we're the city
I
of San Juan
realize that you're
Bautista.
not the city of Hollister, but I'm saying if you contact the city of Hollister through their Parks and Recreation and the YMCA, they have T-ball programs for the little kids.
And ask the city of Hollister if the city of Hollister is going to do a T-ball program in the city of San Juan Bautista.
The city of San Juan Bautista residents should be aware that there exists a T-ball program, and that therefore you could possibly be able to use the park here because your citizens would be able to use it here instead of having to go all the way to Hollister. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Thank you.
So is the council going to get to discuss this?
Pardon?
Is the council going to get to discuss
Sure,
this?
I think,
Are we talking?
yeah, Bob, I got it.
C.
I got it, Bob, thanks. Thank you. Yeah, I got it, thanks.
It's going to be a long meeting, so here.
So, do we have any discussion on the Abbey Park use agreement with the Little League?
I'd like to discuss what was mentioned by Rachel, and I forget her name, but
What was that?
well, so number one, I think it was a year and a half ago when I was still chairman of the Strategic Planning Committee, somebody from the Hollister Parks and Recreation did come and contact us about Junior Giants, and I offered them, and a couple other people on the committee offered them our complete encouragement and nothing else. So I did know about Junior Giants, and I am completely supportive of it, and I'd like to see it expanded. The thing I like about it, I'm the father of two daughters, although they're much older now. It was coeducational, and when I was growing up, Little League was just for the guys. So the Junior Giants is for both boys and girls. So I do like it. So what it's kind of my secret way of tying into what I've mentioned last week. This is a perfect example of why we need a half-time Parks and Recreation person. Remember, manage, and publicize.
Yeah.
So what's not happening now? Because they don't have time, they got planning, they got a million other things to do. Okay. This is what we need.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
I can tell you, I'm really sad that the Little League is falling apart because, oh man, 30 years ago, when Anthony was playing on my team.
He's the one that's doing Junior Giants now?
And I met with him, and
you got stuck. If you were hanging over the fence, you became a coach. 10 years later, you're trying to figure out how to get out of this thing. But what people don't realize is that Little League and T-ball is a lot of work, and you have to be dedicated in it. And I know the guys in Hollister, well, Craig Remoka was the president over there, I think until last year, but they put in a lot of time, and if we could get this Junior Giants thing going, and Rachel, didn't you say that Junior Giants had a T-ball?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. 4 and 5 year olds or something like
Right.
that. Personally, I'd like to leave the park the way it is. We can run the dogs behind Bob's house.
Okay. Anything else? Are we ready to move on?
Actually, Junior Giants already is going, Tony, and it's going pretty, I think, from what I understand, and Rachel can correct me, but it's going very well.
What is their season?
I'm not certain about that.
Start June, the middle of June.
Oh?
They're starting in the middle of June for, I'm not sure how many.
Because I saw some kids out there playing the other day.
Yeah, but that's not, the Junior Giants.
I think that's the Hollister Little League using our field, which is great.
Anything else on this subject? No? Okay, so let's move on to.
Is there no direction on that? I mean,
I think.
do you want to? I didn't bring it up. I didn't bring it up just to have a chat about it. I'd like to see some direction on that. I'm telling you, that corner is never ever used. That corner, I've lived through Junior Giants. I've lived through Hollister Little League now for seasons after seasons after seasons. That corner is never used. I made that corner. I was the one that put the cyclone fence up with the help of Earthbound Farm. It's never used at all. So why not take, and there's nothing about the use of that little corner as a dog park that would ever interfere with Junior Giants or Hollister Little League or Little League in general or kids playing baseball. It's just an unused thing. So why not turn something that's unused into something that's beneficial?
Why don't you notice the public and you have some public input?
We did.
It's
We
on.
did. It's right here. It's right here, notice to the public, as we're required to do, just like the system, the statute requires. Hold on. The discussion is up here. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Dog parks. Okay, I'm a director of the cemetery. I keep getting yelled at by my guys because they're driving with the mower over the leavings. That's the only way I can think.
It's a nice way to
Dog people apparently, other than Jolene, have a habit of not picking up after their dogs.
Tony, I take offense to that.
Huh?
I take offense to that.
Okay, yeah, maybe, okay, there's two of you then,
No,
in the whole
there's a
time.
lot of people out
That's just
there.
not a conversation, gentlemen. Tony's
All
commenting.
I'm saying is, you turn that into a dog park, and then all of a sudden you decide, oh, we need a T-ball field. Somebody's gonna have to go out there and clean the damn thing up. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I do have a speaker card.
okay, hold on.
Okay.
We've closed a public comment on that item.
Okay.
I would like to open this up to the dog park conversation, because that's the next item here.
Oh, I blended them together. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So I think we need to have the broader conversation. So I'm going to open it up, discussion item 6B for the dog park. And we had, and I think that, I guess I haven't really commented. I agree with you 100%. I think it's a perfect use for that space. And it's been a topic of conversation for more than a year, the potential for opening up that space. I think it's a great idea, personally. You have this item also on the agenda, dog park, Councilwoman DeVries. Did you want to discuss anything?
No, the only thing I will add, as I alluded to when I was up at the whiteboard, is that I'd like to turn it over to Bob Quaid, because I kind of see him as a figure of the community that feels passionately about the creation of a dog park in San Juan Bautista. Nothing that, again, just to reiterate, nothing that I was proposing is to the exclusion of that. To the contrary, it's just something that we could do next week. I mean, it's just there and it's ready to go. And then that would enable some of the stuff that Bob, I think, is going to talk about to happen in the meanwhile. And here's the other point, is that if the Junior Giants or Hollister Little League, or even if the city of San Juan Bautista gets its Little League charter back, and we have T-ballers again, well, how hard would it be to turn it back into a little T-ball field? It'd be very easy. You know, there's not a whole lot of infrastructure that's involved, so I just saw it as being consistent with that. But having said that, I would turn it over to the broader discussion of a dog park in San Juan.
Thank you. And I'm not proposing this, but I'm not against it. I think this is a good interim plan. Because I'm looking at, I've been doing some research on dog parks, and I gave you some material on some of my research. So I looked at, went over and looked at the dog park in Morgan Hill. And so the first, this dog park was started by a group of volunteers who formed a nonprofit, then worked with the city of Morgan Hill to open up this dog park in Morgan Hill. And at dog parks, Tony, you're required to clean up after your dog. So if
But who's there to monitor?
Other dog owners. Yes, because if you're not cleaning up your dog after your dog, then there's mess. And most dog parks I've been in, it hasn't been an issue of there being not cleaning up after your dogs. It's when they go out in the soccer fields and they go out in the ballparks where there's not bags for cleaning up aren't provided, then people don't clean up after their dogs. But if you're at a dog park, if you're seen not cleaning up after your dog, then people get after you.
Maybe I should put a couple of those in the cemetery.
You should. And yeah, I walk my dogs every day, and so I've been talking to a lot of the dog owners in town, and I'm getting a lot of support from people that are interested in having a dog park in San Juan Bautista. And John, you talked about touring the Parks and Rec. A dog park was part of the Parks and Recreation
So I passed out a piece of paper last week, and the very second thing on it was managed dog parks. So I'm a longtime dog owner. Right now, the last dog we had passed several years ago, and we don't have one, but I'm a dog person, so you're preaching to the choir.
And the first picture that I have there is when you go into the City of Morgan Hill Dog Park, it has the rules, and there's a lot of rules as far as having your dog at the dog park. And this place here at the ball field, it's a nice beginning, but I think it's a little small. This is probably the size for small dogs. My dogs are considered medium-sized dogs. They would probably do okay here because they're on the small meal, but this is really too small to let your dogs run. That's what people go to a dog park. They're looking to have their dogs, especially a bigger dog, out running, great distance. Actually, if we're looking at this ballpark, I'd propose taking out the ballpark, the big field, and making that a dog park. If we're looking at size-wise, but I'm sure that would get more opposition.
Well,
but I'm not proposing that. I'm not proposing that.
He's not proposing
We
that.
already came over there, dog crap over there, little things in the park. So I'm gonna tell them to freak out.
So, are you proposing something?
So, in looking around San Juan, in most of the sites, I also have in here from Palm Springs Dog Park, and then there was one I found on the internet for Rancho Mirage. Most are an acre. A dog park is an acre and a half or more. I think Morgan Hill is probably 2 acres or greater. So I'm proposing that we establish a dog park behind my house, Tony, at the park property up off of Washington Street and Lang Street. Roger, do you know how many acres that is? That park? 3 acres. So you probably take about half of that parcel up there and make it a dog park. And when it's a dog park, it's not just a dog park. It's a park for the residents too. If you go to any of these dog parks, the nicer, bigger ones, people are in there socializing with their dogs, and there's pathways to walk around, so people are getting exercise. It's not just for the dogs; it's for the dog owners also. So you'd probably have to take half that, but there's a lot of issues with that. Main is the cost of putting a dog park up there. So it's not going to happen overnight. I think what we need to do as a city is establish that, designate it as a place to establish a dog park, and then let myself or whoever I get together, try to figure out how we're going to do that, how we're going to get the funds to put a dog park in there. Because I don't think the city can afford to do it without support from the public and getting donations and trying to write grants and getting money to do it. The other issue is that area is landlocked, because the front parcel there is privately owned, where the house is there on Washington. It's privately owned, and so to get into the area, you'd have to go through someone's property to get into that park.
There's an easement.
There's an easement, but you have to, I'm guessing, buy that easement to get in there.
It's ours.
It's a 20-foot easement along the houses that front on Lang Street, right off of Washington. Goes back to the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you still, so could you put a road in there through that easement?
20 feet wide.
20 feet wide.
It's one lane.
Yeah, okay, well, then that's good news. The other possibility, at one time, someone wanted to develop that property, the front parcel, and put in houses. And at that time, they were proposing to put in a road to give access to the park, and then the road also access the houses. I think they wanted to put 4 houses in there, if I recall. It was when I was on the city council that it was proposed. Kelly Grant was the person that wanted to. He had an option on the property from I think George Gray still owns the property. And then Kelly Grant was going to put 4 houses in there, and then he was going to put a road into the park, and then I think he was actually proposing to put a parking lot in for the park too back there. So that's an option that we possibly want to look at in the future. I know people aren't always excited about development, but we're putting in 86 houses out here. 4 more houses there is no different from the 4 houses up on 7th Street. So if we can get that would go a long ways. If someone was going to put in houses there, then we get access to that park. We can take half the park and develop it for a dog park, and the other half, maybe we put in another T-ball for baseball in the other part of it, or just a park for people, a walking park. You put in a park course for people because there's a lot of people that walk in San Juan too.
Yeah.
Put it in a park course around there, and then have a portion of it for a dog park. That'd be an ideal location because it's big enough. And if you look at some of these pictures, if you get a dog park, all you need is a few pathways, some grass area, and some shade area for maybe some benches or picnic tables. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's a social thing for people besides the dogs. So that's my proposal. At this point, I think we just need to establish that's where we're going to do it, and then we need to figure out a way to do it.
Does it have to be fenced in?
Yes, it has to be fenced in. That's probably the other. I think the fencing probably be cheaper than putting in the irrigation for the grouse and stuff. So the fencing, and like Dan was saying, usually dog parks they have an area, the nicer ones, and you'd be surprised. There's when I went in on the internet, there's a website. It's bringfido.com, and it talks about all the different dog parks, and it rates the dog parks. Instead of stars, they give them bones. The one in Morgan Hill has 5 bones out of 5 bones. The one down in Palm Springs is 4 out of 5. And so and I think people, when they're traveling, a lot of people who travel, they look for places where there's dog parks. And if you have an established dog park, like I drive over to Morgan Hill to take dogs over to Morgan Hill. People will drive here to just like people drive to take their dogs to the Carmel Beach. People will drive from Hollister. Hollister has a little dog park out by the airport. It's not a very good dog park, but you get people from Hollister coming over, Gilroy possibly coming over, and coming in, letting their dog play, and then possibly going to a restaurant or if they're dog friendly, and spending their money in San Juan. So that's my proposal. Is we need to decide where we're going to do it,
right,
and then from there. Establish, like Morgan Hill, that they established a nonprofit, or I was thinking possibly working with like the Community Foundation of San Diego County and establishing a separate account to solicit donations to move forward on it. And the other thing I was thinking, I gotta maybe see if I can get a hold of George Gray to see what his plans. Right now, that house is vacant there in front, so I'm not sure what he's if there's any development activity. Do you know if there's any development activities on that?
No, I haven't heard.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what's going on with that property in the front.
One question, that park, and like Roger said, we got a 20-foot easement that goes in, and then there's, I thought it was 2.5, maybe that includes the easement, but the fences behind like your house there,
There's a, well, I have my own fence. You don't really, wouldn't need a fence. You don't really need a fence there behind my neighbor's house. There's a barbed wire fence below that, because I moved my fence back to my property line. But you might have to put, there's a fence along down by the highway. There's a cyclone fence there already, and then all the other fences are barbed wire fences. You'd have to put up cyclone fences for the dog park portion of it.
So this, in my mind, we need a park plan. We don't have any sort of park plan. I've heard a variety of different ideas proposed for that piece of that parcel, along with other parks and other changes to the parks. And I think it would be, and this sort of brings focus to it, because this is a little more specific than anything I've heard. But I wonder about referring this question back, the park plan, asking the strategic plan committee to get together and put together a park plan based on input from the community and the youth commission, that sort of thing, so that we can get our hands around it. Gathering information yourself and whomever else you think is appropriate for this specifically makes all the sense in the world to me. But
yeah, because you could do other things with that park besides just a dog park.
Yeah.
So if you remember my paper I passed out, the last thing was develop a park plan.
Right.
Okay, so I just want to remind.
Would you pass this paper out too?
It was at our budget meeting.
Okay, so I'm proposing a half-time Parks and Recreation person, half-time public information officer. You're going to hear more about this later in the meeting if you stay. Anyway.
Tony?
I was just going to suggest to Bob that possibly get together with Roger and get at least the outline of that property, so that then you could maybe come up with how much fencing you need.
Well,
like I see in this.
Yeah, once you designate that as an area where we can put a dog park, then I'll take that next step and start looking at. But I don't want to design the park. I just want to, and I want to get input from the community as far as what they want there besides a dog park.
Well, I'm not voting to call it to make it a dog park until I have some idea what it's going to cost. So it's a chicken and egg thing.
Well, I'm saying this. I don't plan it to cost the city anything.
Okay.
I agree with the mayor. The bigger picture is that somebody has to collectively look at a park plan for the whole city. And then the dog portion can be part of that, just like Abbey Park. It could be a part of any one of them.
By the way, I think this is a great idea. I think it's a great idea.
My only thought and footnote to that would be great. Park plan, strategic committees and all that stuff, that sounds great. But it sounds to me like a lot of bureaucracy and something that's going to take a long time. I mean, I'm guessing 6 months at the soonest to even get a report or a plan, much less fund it, much less come up with first steps and action plan. Whereas this little corner, we could do this next week.
I agree.
And I don't see there's a reason. So my proposal would be, why not just do this and then have the master park plan go on at the same time? Gives us something.
I'm in total agreement. Total agreement. This is the fine interim solution, but I don't think it's the ultimate dog park that we could put together for San Juan. This would suffice for a short time until we get a bigger, because it's just not big enough. It's not going to satisfy the large dog owner.
For those of us who have large dogs, yeah.
And I would suggest that before you, and I know this is a discussion item, but as far as this, if the council directs, then it should be brought back on the agenda. to that specific end.
As an
Because
action
right
item?
now, as an action, not only as an action item, but describing the fact that what's involved and what's proposed, because right now I don't think a member of the public reading the agenda would understand that you're discussing this tonight. So I think it should come back.
Makes sense. Okay.
It does.
Any more discussion, council? Jim, do you have any?
My dog's too old to even walk to the end of the driveway.
Okay. So,
But Jim, you may get a new dog someday.
No, I'm too old to walk with her, so hey.
do we have any public comments? Sir, you wanted to address this earlier, and I rather abruptly shut you down, but is it on?
The same thing, as dog park.
Okay.
I do see Dan's idea for the park. I'm his neighbor, I live right across the street. But I do think, why are we taking away, I think as a city we should be offering more services for the little children. I have a 3-year-old at home.
Sure.
And we walk through there, the little T-ball area. It doesn't get used. But it would be nice if we could use it. We have it there. And as far as the ideas of the dog park, honestly, man, it's not big enough. I've been to a lot of dog parks, and I know you spoke a little bit about Morgan Hill and Palm Springs. Palm Springs, huge retirement community there. A lot of people have dogs. A lot of money there. They probably have really nice dog parks. Morgan Hill, the income level is way higher. Probably a really nice dog park. We're probably, I know you said it's not going to cost the city much, but I think we need to scale back our idea on the dog park. It's not going to be the best thing, and like you said, it seems like it's going to be a really long, drawn-out process. Interim, I don't know, man. If people aren't picking up their dog poop on the street here, I just feel like that's the opportunity for it to be just super concentrated poop now. And it's right across the street from our house. If people don't care enough to walk their dogs and carry a trash bag with them and a responsible owner should, they're not going to do it at the dog park, man. It's going to just turn into a big mess. And I've been to some dog parks where it's horrible. Maybe not Morgan Hill. It's really nice to have people cleaning up all the time. I've been to some crappy dog parks, and it's just a big mess. And, I do understand your idea about, quickly we can turn that into, but maybe we should focus on a long-term plan and maybe using that space for our youth. My daughter's 3. I didn't find any sports to put her in. We're taking her to ballet, which is kind of against what I wanted to do. My wife wanted to do it. But, soccer is not offered until
we all understand that.
To a 4-year-old. So if they had a T-ball program at 3, she would have been in there. I like the Giants, the junior Giants idea. That was great. Someone else mentioned that if we could collaborate with Hollister and maybe bring a T-ball program, or if there's an extension of that Giants junior program where they do offer T-ball, maybe then we can use that. It's awesome that you built that. It's great. I just don't see it as a dog park, man. It's really small, and there's people there that have lunch and stuff. Because I do see it. It's getting used every day. People will stop there to have lunch during their lunch break. But I don't know if it's going to be that nice, man. I think it'll just create some bad smell there. I step on poop everywhere in this town. So I feel like it'll just all be concentrated. Everyone will take their dogs there, and that's where they'll do their business. So that's just my 2 cents on the whole thing. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we need to bring this back.
I have another public comment.
Okay.
Jolene Kozia?
Surprise, surprise. I've actually used that proposed area as a dog park because I knew that access was public, and I've always known the people that lived in the house nearby, so I would go through their gate and then go through the next gate and use that
You're talking about the property off Lang Street?
Off Lang Street, off Lang, yeah, I'm on the B subject that we're talking about.
Big space.
And it's, I think, a great idea to have a dog park if you have the money, but I think we're kind of approaching it backwards. I think the first thing that anybody who wants to have a dog park in this city needs to do is start a 501c or whatever, get the funding and get it going, because the city needs to have a good water source, a good infrastructure, fill the potholes, and recreation programs are probably a step way up here on city funding. You can also use private money for that too, but but dog parks for me, and I have a dog, I walk her all over town, as somebody mentioned, I always pick up her poop. And as do a lot of my neighbors and all that. And, dog parks are great, but as far as a city priority goes, I can't give it a real high priority list. And there's been a lot of things proposed for that area, and I would love to see it developed as a dog park here and community garden and, a little recreation, whatever. But we're also at the same time looking at doing a lot of things over in the soccer field as far as recreation goes. So it's a tough call for me, because I just don't see the city having the time or the money to really put into it. Whereas if somebody was to start a 501c for animals, I think that's great. But right now, if the city's going to put any effort and money into it, put it into animal control. Because that's a problem that the entire city has, is animals running loose. Some of them are vicious, they're not licensed, we have an animal problem. But it's not with responsible owners, it's with the irresponsible owners that we have a problem in that. For that, we need enforcement.
Okay, thank you. Let us, more?
One quick comment on that. I know that it says it's not going to cost the city anything, but please find out what the city of Hollister, Morgan Hill, Salinas, what is the liability insurance costing the city for a dog park?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we need to bring it back as an action item if we're going to take action. My suggestion is that we ask the staff to do a little bit of assessment of to make the changes on the space you're suggesting, because I think we're talking about some gate changes, signage, and a couple of benches.
That's it.
Pretty minimal.
That's it.
Get us a sense of what that might cost in round numbers, since seeing as we're in our budget process. And then we then look at potentially creating a park plan as part of the broader question.
Right.
Are you guys amenable to that?
I think we need to look at the whole park picture.
That's what I'm saying.
And we do have the greatest dog park in the world, called the Anza Trader.
Okay. Okay. Are you guys comfortable with that?
So the direction would be is to put it on action, is come back and evaluate the Abbey Park proposal, as well as going in and looking at the development of a master park development plan.
Correct.
And I think as regards the Abbey Park T-ball field, I think what the mayor was referring to is mainly kind of a feasibility analysis, including a budget number. I think
maybe you can, and Bob, I think it would be very helpful to your input. What do we need? I think we're talking about some gates, a couple of fence, some a water outlet, just some basics. But keeping it very simple.
Some more of those poop bag things.
Yeah, that's it.
We bought 5 of them and got them at the library, and I think we worked effectively.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to bring that back at the next meeting. Okay, good. Thank you. Hiring a city manager, report by the ad hoc committee. I don't think we have anything to add at this point. We have another meeting, public meeting.
Thursday afternoon? Yeah, this Thursday at Vertigo's. See you there.
This Thursday evening at 5 p.m. will be, John and I will be available to take input from the public. We invite everyone to come and talk to us about any input they have into the city manager role, position, and hiring a replacement for Mr. Roger. Anything to add? Any questions on that one? Any public comment?
No.
Oh, very good. Gosh, let's see. How, well, we got a couple we're not going to be able to skip.
Continue.
What's that?
Mr. West is moving to continue the rest of the agenda.
Yes, I think we just continue.
Continue everything? I think.
If I could just comment on 6F, you know, the curb painting schedule
Yeah.
citywide, we're getting on that. As soon as the weeds
Good.
are down and a few
Yeah, understood.
critical they'll be right back.
I'm going
on.
to send you my list
Yeah,
of
okay.
things that I have observed or been asked to
Yeah, right.
report, and also.
And I also made contact with the Mormon church over there, the troop there. They're the ones that helped us the last 3 years.
Right.
And they were the Eagle Scouts. And,
Okay.
it was a good program for them, and maybe they'll get back and help us.
Okay, so I would suggest we continue the discussion of the City Hall office hours unless anybody's very anxious to get into that one. It looks like it could be a lengthy conversation. So we're going to continue item E.
Do we need a motion to continue?
Do we?
City Attorney, guys?
It's a consensus.
Consensus, because it's
Consensus to
Yes.
continue.
We have consensus. Jim, you're comfortable with that? Tony? Okay. And you're, Dan,
Yeah.
you're okay with it? Okay. The curb painting will continue. I think item two will continue as well.
We can continue. I did have dinner with Michelle, the superintendent of the school, but we can continue it.
Okay, any
Doesn't matter.
objection? None? Hearing none? Well, item H, I think we do need to discuss the item I there, because that meeting is coming up and there's there's preparation that needs to happen for that meeting. My understanding is that the city attorney, Deb, is going to be the primary presenter.
That's correct.
She had volunteered to take that on.
She's done all
So
the
she's-
research in our office, basically. I shouldn't say on cannabis, but she's done that research.
Sure.
And I believe that she could provide an proposed agenda for the workshop. I think that would be within, she has some ideas about how the various issues should be presented, I know.
Okay. And do we have any further input from the council in terms of content for that meeting on June 14th?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I propose that we do a complete history of the if you smoked it in 1931, you weren't breaking any laws. Did you know that? It was absolutely legal.
You're looking for personal history?
Yeah, I was born that year, yes. And so it became illegal in 1932. And so I would like to see a complete history and the reasons why, okay? And that's a hard question. Why is always a hard question.
Okay. Well, I think we
And I can add to it if Deborah can't, okay? So.
Well, then I think we'll assign that, John,
Okay.
for that meeting. Sounds like a great idea.
Very good. Well, I'll let Deb.
Anything else in terms of content for that meeting, or structure, et cetera?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a thought. To me, it seems like the city is confronting two issues as regards cannabis. Given a lot of thought to it, talked to a lot of people, and the first is kind of a policy type of inquiry, which is where does this city, this community, intersect the cannabis industry in 2017 in the state of California. You know, after Prop 64, a lot of those historical things are irrelevant because the voters of the state of California have decided a lot of that stuff for us already. So, but as I understand Sacramento, they're saying it's basically up to individual communities to figure out how they're going to segue to this. And I think those kinds of policy questions are appropriate for a city council or a board of supervisors to grapple with and try to understand, because they can answer those things in a very large, big scale way, or they can answer them kind of small, like being very limiting, we only want to have this much to do with it, etc. So those are policy questions. And then the other aspect, so that's the first thing. The second thing is as regards land use. Land use, in my experience with planning, is always the question of, okay, assuming that it's something that a community wants, where should it go? And the where should it go question, I think, is most appropriately addressed by a planning commission. Because the planning commissioners can take public testimony about, what should go here, we don't like it here, all of those things. But those kinds of discussions are predicated upon first having decided the policy, that you want it there in your community in the first place, or to what extent, and so forth. Like City of Hollister, for example, they're a little bit ahead of us. They've answered some of those questions from a policy standpoint. Now they're getting into the land use portion of it. As I understand it, they're making decisions of we want it out, by the airport, or we want it north of town. And the county, I don't think, is too different than that. So that's all to say that for June 14th, for our cannabis forum, cannabis workshop, I think we would do well to keep those two things separated. And maybe the council just decides the policy questions first, and then we kick the rest of the planning commission to decide the questions of, okay, if that, then therefore where should it go? Because you guys all paid attention to my infamous post on Facebook that had like 300 comments or something about, cannabis in San Juan Bautista. And the range of responses was really interesting to me, because it was, people saying no, not at all, to people saying absolutely, and then there was like a middle ground, which was okay, but not in the historic district, for example, not on 3rd Street. So that signaled to me that they weren't opposed to cannabis being in the community in general, they were just more opposed to it being in certain locations. Well, I think that's kind of more of a planning commission question, frankly, as a recommendation to the council. I mean, the council would retain ultimate yes or no to those recommendations, but I think the planning commission is better suited to figure out where something should go once those policy questions are answered. So that's my 2 cents.
Jim?
I would agree with that, but I think we have, the people that I've talked to have forgotten, you have a right as an individual to have 6 plants in your house.
So the personal use of marijuana is not an issue. It's the commercial use of marijuana. And when people have come to me and said, well, you would ban it from the city, I said, no, you can have 6 plants in your house. That's nothing, we can't do anything about it. We're only talking about commercial use within San Juan Bautista. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that, and a lot of people think that San Juan Bautista is trying to take away their right.
Gotcha.
And we're not doing that. And I think we have to keep that in mind with people, because otherwise the people I've talked to have been very confused on that.
Okay.
And just a point of clarification from Councilmember West, all my comments I just made were regards commercial only. That's all I was talking about.
Understood. I knew you were.
Okay.
Tony, any?
I think the first thing we have to do is decide whether or not we want it.
Yeah, I think that's, I agree.
And go from there. I mean, why waste any more time if we decide we don't?
John?
Well, I was just my attempt was to bring some of those people who have negative feelings around to a more middle road. That's why I was going to go into the history. I always think history is good. You foretell the future by figuring out what happened in the past. And so, but I do agree that I'm concerned about commercial, and I want to find out what's the best path forward for our city.
Right. I agree with Councilman Cabrees that differentiation, that separation, I think makes perfect sense. Do we agree in general with that viewpoint, that we're talking about do we want it at all policy, broader picture, not getting into the nitty-gritty of land use and so forth during that June 14th?
Well, there's a lot to consider in policy. Do we want it one way, or do we want it? Do we want to keep our anti-franchise thing, because cannabis industry is now becoming franchised? So They are, Jim, they are.
They call it dope IRS?
Whatever. But
Or you are dope.
it's, you know, the attorney's laughing, but the place where he's living, the biggest cash crop is marijuana, you know.
State of California.
Yeah, so.
Okay, so.
And I'd point out as well that the law is still in flux in this area as well, so it's a good idea to have the discussion now, so, and then keep track as the law changes. There's a trailer bill right now that would make significant changes to the law that was passed by the voters, and also the medical marijuana aspect of it, so that's still coming along.
I think public comment?
Yes, Jolene Cosio?
Okay.
I think you're on the right track, keeping it on policy. But as part of this meeting, I think that you need to include law enforcement and crime and issues like that, because I did a little internet search, and that was actually based on something that Chris said. Well, there haven't been any problems with
Question I pose, yeah.
criminal. Well, go online, type in marijuana dispensary robberies, and you will find a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I have very little interest in the aspect of it that John's talking about, the history of it and all that, and I'm glad that Jim reminded us that everybody can grow 6 plants, and if everybody in town wants to go out and grow 6 plants, I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
I have a problem with law enforcement, crime, money, and drugs often leads to use of guns. And I have a big problem with that aspect
Okay,
of it.
well-
I don't have a problem with marijuana. I don't need to learn more about marijuana. I need to know where the city is going in terms of policy.
Commercial. Come to our meeting, June
Thank you.
14th. That meeting is June 14th. And I don't believe we set a time for that.
No, we haven't.
I have another speaker card.
I understand. We'll get to that in just a moment. So,
Do we have a location?
I guess we'll come back to that. Let's take our other speaker
Is it
card.
Ruben?
Yes. What again? Just wanted to make a comment. I am a medical marijuana patient. I've suffered through various ailments throughout my life, going back to when I was a child. Currently, there's no place here in town, obviously, to get my medication. Luckily, I live in Santa Cruz, which is a really cool place where I can have my stuff delivered to me, or go see a storefront there, where I'm giving my tax money over there. I would really love to see something here in San Juan.
I'm going to stop you there because what we're talking about is the content of our meeting on the 14th.
On the 14th, okay.
So if you've got
So you want me
comments
to
about
just go to that meeting? on the 14th?
Pardon me?
You want me just to attend that meeting?
Please, I mean, that is the forum for that. What we're trying to decide is what the form of that meeting is going to take,
Okay.
and what the content for that meeting should be.
All right, so yeah, maybe an aspect of patients, medical marijuana patients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I have spoken to a lot of people, especially at the
So it's a
supermarket,
Wednesday
that
night.
run into people out there, and there seems to be a lot of positive feedback on something like that.
Good.
So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Van Visa?
So June 14th is a Wednesday night?
Yes.
So-
Just a moment.
Flag Day. Flag Day.
It is Flag Day.
Good evening. I would like to be considered to be added to the agenda on the June 14th meeting. I think that there needs to be proper representation about specifically small-scale organic portion of the industry, not just the commercial, large-scale corporate model. I believe that there should be discussion about the license types, not only the Medical Cannabis Regulation and Safety Act, which is Governor Brown's initiative, but then also the Adult Use Act that was the voter initiative. We need to look at what the licenses are going to be available in 2018, so that if you do decide that regulation is the way that you want to go, if you do decide that you do want to offer maybe even one license, or you want to open it for permitting, you need to know what type of local license types are going to match at the state level. I believe that there should be discussion, not only a representation of the patients, what the patient-plant relationship looks like, and how that's really a public health issue is what we're dealing with. You know, you're talking about providing safe access to your constituency or denying them safe access. And due to your reasons, this is just a discussion point, right? Also, representation on what the businesses would look like. I myself am representing small-scale cottage industry for medical and a vertically integrated micro business for adult use. I believe that updates should be talked about what's happening in the county of San Benito, because everyone who is a city of San Juan Bautista resident is also a San Benito County resident, and they have an ad hoc committee. They are paying a consultant. They just had their first draft ordinance reviewed last Tuesday, which I was in attendance of, and there is a PowerPoint presentation. So they're already spending money to do the type of research that you're going to need in looking into the demographics, and I think that it would be prudent of the council to basically not necessarily copy what the county is doing, but just take a look into what your neighbors are doing. The city of Hollister does have an ordinance that's passed. They have gone through their permitting process. They have already done the zoning and everything. They're going to be allowing 2 dispensaries to operate within Hollister. And I'm not sure if we are going to, I've been told and directed by city staff that I might not be able to have a chance to speak after this discussion topic. So I do have public comments as far as updating the council on what's happening on the city and on the county level. So I don't know if I've given my 3 minutes, or is anybody?
Again, I think we need to focus tonight on what the content of that June 14th meeting is going to be.
Okay.
And we've gotten a list of items that you think should be included.
Mm-hmm.
Take that under advisement.
Okay.
The city attorney is going to be the primary presenter. There will be time for public comment during that meeting. And I think given your, I guess I'd say, unique position, I would certainly be willing to afford you additional time to speak during that meeting. But maybe we could talk about that, what that may look like.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Sure. So,
What time?
the June 14th meeting,
Wednesday night, I suggest 6 o'clock.
I would agree. Is everybody?
Yeah, I got it at 6.
I didn't have a time.
I got it at 6. I
Are
don't
we
know if put it in
comfortable with
there.
that?
Yeah.
I would suggest we set a time limit of either 3 hours or 4 hours, 6, and cut it off. Okay?
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
That's a good
Because
idea.
there have been school board, you're laughing, Chris, but there's been school board meetings that gone to 1 o'clock.
Let's put in a hard stop.
9 p.m.? 9 p.m. hard stop.
Yeah, I don't know if I would recommend that you have a hard stop, depending on how the discussion goes, because that could have a prospective effect on limiting people. You could always continue the meeting, you could continue the workshop if you need to.
A hard stop,
Yeah.
and if we're not done with business, we can
Yeah.
continue, and that's not violating due process at all.
Well, the idea of putting a hard stop in the agenda, I think, has a chilling effect on public
I
comment.
would agree.
Okay, so our intent is to continue the meeting at 9 p.m. if there's additional comment.
Not if there's an opportunity to continue.
Okay.
Yeah, except I would,
Another
did
comment?
receive another call.
Okay.
Elliot?
Okay, so this will be the last time you guys see me here tonight. I would recommend that you reach out to the ad hoc committee for San Benito County, which is Mark Medina and Robert Rivas. Victor Gomez is their consultant, but I would not reach out to Victor Gomez because he's going to want to get paid. So reach out to Mark and reach out to Robert because they're going to be very helpful. They're the ones that are writing the ordinance, and I think that would be a good start for you. I don't know if it's possible, maybe the attorney can answer if it's possible to invite one of them to the meeting. So that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
And I do think it's really important to have the county perspective, because they're right. We live in the county, and we're going to be influenced tremendously by whatever they set up.
Yeah, if you could give me the context that you mentioned after the meeting is fine, and if you could also give me your list of issues that you'd like to consider, I'll make sure to provide them.
Okay. That takes us to number 7. City Council comments. Any comments, gentlemen?
Made them all?
Nope.
You have to learn to run it faster.
Yeah. Okay.
Quit dallying.
Wow. Okay. City manager, any comments?
Nope, the only comment, I'm glad to be here and to meet all of you sometimes for the first time, and Deb sends her regrets, but she will certainly be ready to go on June 14th, not before.
Good to be here. Entertaining a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? All right. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.